Listen, if you guys like to somebody like not even close.
He has his. Their retreat, like their team building thing.
Yes.
Now I feel like
Well, Rain and Megan here started.
Really cool with the Terry. Has my presence been missed? Yeah. I should.
Yeah. There it is. All right. About ready? Okay, we're going to call to order this meeting of the Fayetteville Board of Education on Thursday, November 15th, 2018. And I believe we have some students from Fayetteville High who are here to do the Pledge of Allegiance. Guys, if you want to come around this way. Oh, right. That way. There you go. Come around this way and face that way. You'll face the camera. And we have Dr. Dostal.
Well, good evening. Thank you for allowing us to be here tonight. I'm proud to introduce members of our pup crew and dog crew who will be saying the Pledge of Allegiance this evening.
Hello, my name is Chad Wagstaff, and I am in 9th grade.
I am Huxley Richardson. I'm in 11th grade.
I'm Anna Wetzel, and I'm a sophomore.
I'm Presley Pinson, and I'm in 9th grade.
I'm Kennedy Mahone, and I'm in 11th grade.
I'm Meredith Geen, and I'm in 11th grade.
I'm Elaine Sillo, and I'm in 12th grade.
I'm Jess Robinson, and I'm in 12th grade. I'm Claire Cooper, and I'm a senior.
I'm Anaya, and I'm a senior.
Thank you.
Thanks for being here. Hey, guys. Okay, I'm going to bring up Alan for roll call.
Justin Eichmann.
Here.
Tracy Farah.
Here.
Nika Weitzman.
Here.
Tim Hudson.
Here.
Bob Moranto.
Here.
Megan Hurley.
Here.
And Keaton Smith.
Here.
Okay. We have a group from Ramey Junior High that's here tonight. Ask Mr. Watkins and his crew to please come forward. They were recently honored by the Arkansas Association of Middle Level Education with the 2018 Shannon Wright Award, which is basically the middle school of the year. If staff members feel just like the student council did just a minute, or the dog crew.
Yeah.
I am Christina Hudson, and I'm one of the assistant principals.
I'm Heather Bottoms, and I'm 8th grade ELA English, as well as the Avid Site Coordinator, one of them.
David Watkins, building principal.
Joyce McClellan, special education teacher.
Cherie Keys, literacy.
Rebecca Gilmer, the ESL representative.
Ryan Gorman, assistant principal.
William Vanderlander, band.
You're very well behaved, like the students before you. It's a good thing. So Fayetteville Public Schools is pleased to recognize and honor Ramey Junior High for being named a 2018 winner of the Shannon Wright Award by the Arkansas Association of Middle Level Education. You were selected for your demonstrations of outstanding achievement in implementing best middle level practices. Your commitment to reach and engage every student is building a strong culture at Ramey and will pay big dividends in the lives of your students. Please accept our sincere congratulations. Well done to all of you.
Yes. Okay, can we go one, two, okay, can you scoot it out? There we go. One, two, three. Thanks.
The Arkansas Art Education Association recently picked their 2018 Art Educator of the Year, and it was one of ours. Charity McCartney, would you please come forward? This is the second time she's received this award, and it's the fourth time she's been honored by this association. Mrs. Whitesmith.
I have brought some memorabilia for this special moment. So I'm just so grateful for the impact you've had on my three and just all the different things I have hanging around my house as a result of your investment in them. I texted them today, what was your favorite project in Mrs. McCartney's class? And I launched an argument. Yeah, I didn't really, you know, one of their favorite memories I brought were the journals that cool. They all had sketchbooks that they did in class and just, I don't know if she did all of them, but the other ones, of course, Faith said, the clay masks, duh. They loved making these clay masks, so I pulled that off the wall. And then Caleb, of course, remembered the art shows that you did for them, where she actually allowed them to put a sale price on their artwork. Do you still do that?
Yeah, well, we don't sell it because I don't
know if
want to
they-
upset the fifth graders.
I don't think they.
They don't realize they don't get it back.
Exactly, if they sell it.
Yeah.
Well, Caleb remembered nobody bought his, but.
But actually, mom's supposed to buy it.
Oh, I should have just come in with my, but that's all. He still remembers what a great thing it was to be able to display his art. I mean, maybe the only time in his life he'll
That's
be
what
able
it's
to.
about, getting it out into the community.
You have done a great thing for these kids to give them the opportunity to express themselves through art. So we appreciate you. So Fayetteville Public Schools is pleased to recognize and honor Charity McCartney for being named the 2018 Arkansas Art Educator of the Year. Your peers have once again selected you as the top art educator in Arkansas. You have spent your career as an art educator teaching your students that the study of art blends with and complements, every other curricular area.
So true.
In addition, you have given your personal time and resources to showcase your students' artwork, in citywide exhibitions, so like Arcega's and the library. It's a fun outlet for the kids for many years. Please accept our sincere congratulations and appreciation.
Thank you.
Thank you. Should I hold up my clay now?
Yeah, get all the art in. It's about the art.
I'm doing it right back here.
Thanks.
I know. Thank you so much.
Congrats.
You may remember last month when we honored a Fayetteville High School student who had made the highest score possible on the ACT exam. Well, she's not the only one. We have two more to honor tonight. Will Kexon Ming and Albert Coe please come forward?
Put you on the spot and ask you to name your favorite teacher. So just to warn you a second, if you can do one. These are amazing young people. I know. I always want to call him Alan because I know his brother Alan. I know Albert and Alan Coe are part of an amazing family. Your brother's a great piano player. You're a great clarinet player, one of the leaders in the orchestra. And also, of course, this is a great thing going off to study computer science somewhere next year, which will be exciting to hear where. And Kexon is also amazing. You're the concert mistress, lead violinist in the orchestra, do a dozen other things around school, and are kind of a leader. Kids really look up to you. I don't know if you know that or not, but they really do, because you're just such a nice and inclusive and inquisitive person. So with that, let me read the official proclamation. But first, do you want to name just one teacher? You didn't have to, but if you want to name just one teacher who really helped get you here, you can do it, or you can pass for now. Hard to name just one. I know it's hard. Yeah, there'll be other chances. Kexon.
I'd like to thank Madame Bolia, who's in the room right now. She's been with me since sophomore year when I first moved here, and she's just been a huge supporter of me, and she's always encouraged me. And I don't think I'd be who I am, as confident as I am, without her. Yeah.
Yay. You're not the only one who said that about Madame Bolia. Okay, let me read the official proclamation. You were for making the highest score possible in the ACT exam, which is an amazing achievement. I was nowhere near there, I know that. Your very impressive performance in the ACT places you among the highest performing students at FHS and in the nation, and will draw the attention of many colleges and university recruiters, potentially huge scholarships there. We're confident this is just one of many accolades to come, and we will hear from you a lot in the future. Please accept our sincere congratulations. Yeah. Okay. And I think I now hand this to you. Yeah, let's go over here. Wait, no, we don't have to move.
Well, and another, some sort of carryover from last month, you may remember we recognized the Fayetteville High School girls tennis team for their state championship, and then the individual singles and double state champions. Well, since then, some more awards have come down with the head coach. Darren Phelan, please come forward.
Can I stand next to you?
Yes. Oh, you want to go up there?
No. I'm
okay,
good.
right here. Well, yes. Well, and I'm sorry, I don't have any props like Nika, so I don't have anything.
She has much better artwork.
She does, yes, she does, and this is really not a huge surprise, seeing how you were here last month with the girls team and with the season that you had with both the boys and the girls. So we all should have known that this award was coming. So in recognition of your outstanding achievement, Fayetteville Public Schools is pleased to recognize and honor Darren Phelan for being named the 2018 Arkansas Tennis Coach of the Year by Arkansas Preps. Your teams and players continue to compete and win at the highest levels. The program you have built will continue to provide strong players for years to come. We're pleased to see this well-deserved statewide recognition come your way, so please accept our sincere congratulations. Congratulations, Darren.
And our Above and Beyond Awards that are presented each month by the Education Committee of the Chamber of Commerce. And here to do the honors is Kirby Harris.
Our November honoree is Erin Tremaine, if she would join us up front. Two of her colleagues wrote the following. Erin is always finding new ways to serve her SLC class. She is constantly making new and exciting task boxes, searching for interesting field trips, such as our new partnership with Equestrian Bridges, and manages the staff in her classroom very well. I never hesitate to go to Erin with a question or concern. As an SLC teacher and a member of the RTI team at our school, Erin has a lot on her plate. Her long to-do list never gets in the way of helping her students in or outside of her classroom. I think she is the perfect candidate for the Above and Beyond Award. And a second nomination reads, Mrs. Tremaine should be chosen for an Above and Beyond Award. She is a wonderful teacher for SPED who is beyond attentive to her students' needs every time I see her class. When I enter her classroom twice a week, she is always actively finding ways of getting each student to their maximum potential of learning by modifying tasks specifically to each student's area of strength and preference to meet his or her objective. I work in many schools in our district, and all of our wonderful teachers accomplish this, but the thing that makes Erin special is her tireless, consistent pace. She is amazing. All of her students get a top-notch opportunity to learn every day they show up. I hope you choose Mrs. Erin Tremaine because she truly deserves it. Congratulations.
Mr. Eichmann.
Thank you. Okay, I have received, this is citizen participation time, and I've been notified there might be two citizen participation forms, but I've gotten one so far. And first up is Luke Regnier. And I'll say this reminder too, in citizen participation time was a 5-minute limit, and we restrict it to obviously a school topic. And typically, for anybody who wants to speak before us, we have you just fill out a form, and you can go to Alan or to get that form, or it's also on the website. So thank you, Luke.
Thank you, Mr. Eichmann. It is with great humility that I bring to you tonight a concept that has been long in the works. I mean, no disrespect at all to the very capable administration and staff. This is not an attempt at an end around. However, what I will present to you tonight is a concept that has a relatively short fuse on it. And by short fuse, I mean it may not be here for very long. First of all, I want to see if the Elmo is working. And then what I want to do is give each of you, if I may, this is a concept map that I prepared with the help of the city of Fayetteville. And what you will see here outlined in yellow is a parcel of property that is currently under contract for sale to an entity recently incorporated, a nonprofit entity called Friends of Fayetteville Forests. This is, if you look at your maps, you will see this is part of the property owned by Mr. James Keenan behind Butterfield Trail Elementary School. I bring this before you now, and the only reason that I have made the decision to speak to this board tonight about this subject is that it is a highly sought-after parcel, and from extensive negotiations, we have potential participation from the Walton Family Foundation in order for the district to make an acquisition of this parcel if it so desires. After this meeting, we'll of course be talking to Dr. Slocum. We had a kind of a tough time just getting together this week due to our schedules. I really do also look forward to conversations with Dr. Colbert. His admonishments to me tonight about processes were well taken. This is the property that you're looking at here is approximately 30 acres located directly behind Butterfield. And if you notice, just on the very far left side of your map, you'll see where Rolling Hills comes through. That is currently slated on the city master plan for extension all the way through to Oak Bailey. Why do I present this to the district tonight? I feel that this is an understanding that the district is considering how to expend funds via a bond rollover, and is making some fairly significant plans right now with regard to facilities, that this would make a prime facility or prime area to add another building on a small footprint or for an additional 5 through 6 school. In other words, we have another Owl Creek model located next to Butterfield Trail. I think this would do a great service in reducing the congestion at McNair, which has long been a subject. Even before, with the stroke of a pen, our latest demographers decided that the capacity was 850. Even with that modeling, the capacity at McNair is expected to exceed 850 within a matter of years. I don't know what the current enrollment is, but it is, I believe, high time the district considered an acquisition to expand somewhere on the east side capacity for 5th and 6th grade level students. This would be a prime candidate because in addition to the Walton Family Foundation, there are other philanthropic partners who may be involved in this. I'd like to go through that process with Dr. Colbert and Dr. Slocum. Tonight, I just wanted to put this out in the ether for you to think about as you go forward. You know, I've drawn some trails on here. This is something that was essential to the Walton Family Foundation. They love to see trails. They love to see bicycling access. They love to see a nature walk, that sort of thing. We are looking at acquisition here of this 30 acres at the valuation of approximately $100,000 an acre. That may sound high, but it's actually rather low, even by the Walton Family Foundation's own estimates. Right now, tentatively, their contribution would be in the neighborhood of $1 million. If the school district had also put up a $1 million towards closing. I have the seller's agent here tonight who's been very helpful in working with me, Mr. Mitch Weigel, who's indicated that his client would take a note for $1 million at the IRS minimum rate for between 3 and 5 years. So if the school district could reserve some funding out of its budget over the next 3 to 5 years, in case philanthropic efforts fell through, you still have an opportunity. Worst case scenario, to acquire a piece of property within the center of town for 66% of market value. Worst case scenario. So again, I do extend my apologies to the administration for not having gone through proper channels at first. However, this is a time-sensitive deal, and I wanted to put it on this board's radar as you are thinking about how to expend funds within the coming months. May I answer any questions about this?
Thank you, Luke, and would encourage discussion with Dr. Slocum and Dr. Colbert, and we look forward to seeing what results.
I very much look forward to discussions with Dr. Slocum and Dr. Colbert, and again, I extend my apologies to the two of them for having brought this to your attention before time allowed us to meet. Again, I just emphasize this is a rather time-sensitive deal, and we would like to engage in those discussions at the earliest possible opportunity. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you. And I did receive one other form from Meredith Atkins. She's here. Good. Thank you.
Good evening. Oh,
Good evening.
I don't want that up.
Oh, Alan will come switch it off.
Okay, great. Don't want 6 minutes. Good evening, everybody, members of the school board, Dr. Colbert. Hi. I didn't know there would be so many people here. But I'm coming here tonight to share a little bit of a personal story, and then also encourage you to perhaps look into some further data regarding this. I'm currently Director for Corporate Relations and Outreach at the Sam Walton College of Business here at the University of Arkansas. I'm from South Fayetteville. I attended Jefferson School in the 1990s and Ramey, and then Fayetteville High School after that, where I graduated first in my class. I'm currently working on my PhD in public policy, community development, and that interest, I believe, was very much spurred by my experience at Jefferson, which was about 50% minority school, mixed income, and it was a really incredible place. So when you're looking at the future growth of the school district, I know that you all are here because you care so much about children. And so when I think of during the day, you drive past a school and you see all the children out on the playground playing, it brings so much life to that community. And I feel like after Jefferson School closed in 2007, that South Fayetteville has really lost a lot of its life. It's feels really rather desolate. I walk that community a lot because I live there, and you don't really see anybody anymore. And I know that there's a lot of interest in developing that community. Its proximity to the U of A, it's right next to downtown. It's really the heart of Fayetteville. It's critical to our town and I think to the district. And I think that, so that was the imagery. I also wanted to bring data. So I went to the census. I tried to get the census numbers to show the decline of the neighborhood post 2007. Unfortunately, I need the 2020 census before I can show that. I think the 2010 census doesn't really have us enough data. However, I think the university does have other more granular neighborhood data where we could see the kind of flight of that region of Fayetteville, particularly families with children. I think, from generic data, we know that neighborhood schools they attract families. That's why many residents buy their homes, is the proximity to a good school. That makes home prices go up, and it makes property taxes go up, which ultimately does go into the school system. So I know that when you're looking at the numbers alone, Jefferson School may not make a lot of sense when you're just looking at where's the growth. I do understand that there's probably more growth in West Fayetteville. There is quite a bit of growth in South Fayetteville, especially with the Park Meadows development will bring in 300 low, I guess you could say first-time home buyer, affordable homes. But I think what I would urge the board to consider is planning growth where you want it and not just where the current development is. And I think that a historic and beautiful school in the heart of our city, like Jefferson, is really where we want to think about where we could have that growth. And I encourage further collaboration with the university. I think there's a lot of faculty who would be really interested, and graduate students, in researching this. On my dissertation committee, there's a cost-benefit analysis social researcher who specifically has worked with the cities and others to do analyses of projects that don't just take into account hard costs, but also long-term growth and kind of looking at those social science indicators that are harder to analyze. So I apologize for being so emotional. I didn't know I would. But that's what I wanted to share.
Thank you very much. We appreciate it. Okay, I didn't receive any other requests for citizen participation. So with that, we're going to move on to the next part of the agenda, which is the board member liaison reports. And I guess I'm up first with the Fayetteville Public Education Foundation, and I have Cambry Hornbrooks, who's here tonight. As I foreshadowed in some earlier months, there's been kind of a lot of talk and a lot of work within the foundation on a new direction for the foundation that Cambry and I and Dr. Colbert have talked and met about on a number of occasions, and wanted to bring Cambry in to talk about that, but also to guide us through what the foundation does. It's a big concern. It's not a problem concern, but as a going concern. There's a lot of moving parts to what the foundation does, and very few districts across the country have what we have in this district. And it's something that we're very fortunate to have that level of support from the community and from a foundation that we do have, and it's really a model for how you do a public education foundation in this region. So appreciated Cambry being able to come tonight, and we foresee probably a few more dates here in the future where we have further discussion. So I'll turn it over to Cambry.
Great. Thank you so much for having me this evening. I I work much better with a dialogue kind of presentation as opposed to a lecture. So anytime you want to jump in, I would appreciate it because I do work better that way. I hate going off slide for slide, but I do need to cover some information, so I had to do that. I really wanted to share with you guys what we do and what we do not do. I get a lot of questions in the community. Why do we need a foundation? You know, what is your purpose? I mean, and I will be honest. Some people are not friendly about it. They think that there is some disconnect between the foundation and the school budget, for instance, or the curriculum. And I have to quickly assure them that our role is to go above and beyond the budget of the school district. We are fiscally sound within the Fayetteville School District. We have a fantastic curriculum. That's not our role. Our role is not to fix curriculum. And I can say, after I say that, I can also say to those curious individuals that that a testament to that is the amount of people that give us support for these exceptional above and beyond projects that we give to the district. So with that being said, my first slide is, I also talk a lot, and if my teachers from Fayetteville were here today, they would tell you that was true as well. I got in trouble quite a bit for that, so slow me down when I start going 90 to nothing. But we primarily give teachers to grants and scholarships to students. Our goal right now is to foster creativity and enhance academic experiences among the students. I'm going to flip through the history a little bit because I think it's important to know our roots. I stand on the shoulders of giants who literally built this from the ground up. Alan Wilburn being our first executive director back in the day. Yes, he was. And the school district having some extremely large amounts of conversations and oversight in getting the foundation off the ground. It was started by school board members, parents, and caring community members who got together and decided, let's do this. In 1992. From that point, they obtained a 501c3 status, and in 1993, we distributed $17,000. If those that are grinning right now know that last year we distributed $300,000. So a little bit has changed over the last 20 years, which I'm grateful for. In 1994, the foundation began to build an endowment, and that is where they were really smart. I can tell you, working with my colleagues and other public education foundations, they are just now getting started on that. To think 20 years ago, that was a vision by Jack Butt and Marianne Greenwood and some other people. It's pretty darn amazing. So our first full-time staff member was Treva Hamilton, and in 2002, the endowment, since 2002, the endowment has grown from $750,000 to $4 million. And the district is the sole beneficiary of that money. That I will go into a little bit more detail, but since that point, we've distributed $3 million to the district in grants and scholarships. So that is an incredible amount of support coming in from the foundation. But we are a small operation. We have 2 staff. And another question I often get is the operations of the foundation itself is completely through unrestricted money through donations in the community. So we don't have any state money, we don't have any federal money, we don't have any large corporation who pays for our staff or for our house or for our operating cost or our operating budget. We fundraise that through the unrestricted support that we get through some of our event planning and other activities. Again, I have to come back to the fact that we don't address budget shortage within the district. We enhance what's already outstanding, and that has always been our mission from the very beginning. We do have a board of directors. It's a large board of directors right now, bigger than usual because we are having some people roll off. You can read through our officers. We have Jack Butt has stayed on as emeritus, and Dr. Colbert and Justin Eichmann are our ex officio. That is how our articles read, that we will always have someone from the superintendent and the acting president of the Board of Education on our board of directors to keep us abreast on what's going on within the school district. How we stack up. So here we are in the state of Arkansas, and these are the other public education foundations around the state. Ours is the biggest star because we are. We have by far the largest amount of support going out, the largest amount of sustainability. I would say my colleagues right now are doing pass-throughs. So they are fundraising a 5K, they pass it through onto the school district, and so there's nothing in perpetuity. A bad year could mean a bad year. They have a very difficult time sustaining staff, and so we are fortunate for the longevity of that vision of the endowment. This is the part where I hope I don't bore you, because it took me about 4 years to even understand this myself. But we have restricted money and we have unrestricted money. And the restricted money is really what comes to the district itself. I have to draw a diagram when I talk about the endowment. The endowment is at $4 million. We use the income off the endowment to provide the grants to the district. It is a finite amount of money that we will never go above, between 3 and 5% of that income coming off the endowment, even if it's a good year, which it has been, and last few good years. And so when we decide on distribution, we get a note in the mail from our financial advisors, and they say, this is how much the income is coming off, and this is how much you have to spend based on your spending policy, which we stick to very sternly and strictly. And so we don't have any discretionary funds outside of that to give out unless we get into a pass-through situation with a pass-through grant. So again, we have $4 million in assets. The principal is never spent. The income off the endowment supports the grants and scholarships. Spending policies 3 to 5% annually, and we have no discretionary funds for projects. We have 70 funds in the endowment. That's where it gets a little confusing for me on my end, and that's my problem, not y'all's entirely. When our donors come in, if they come in at a certain level and make a gift to the endowment, they are offered two things. One, a naming opportunity for that family or for someone in honor, and they are also offered the opportunity to designate a field of interest in which they want to designate their money. So when our teachers make a grant, they are looking at this incredibly long drop-down menu of areas of interest, and we consider them what we would call focus areas, but they are not required to put in a grant to us. We will wiggle with them. A lot of our donors have chosen to keep their fund, as they call it, need-based. So it goes to the greatest need available. So we have some wiggle room with what we call unrestricted, getting it all confusing here, but unrestricted support as well for teachers that don't fall into that box of a donor's field of interest. Same with the scholarships. All of those scholarship donors have the opportunity to hand out the stipulations and the criteria for a student, as well as where they want to go, whether it be the University of Arkansas or any group of higher education. And we have two, getting into this, I'm jumping ahead of myself. So annually, we do give out about 75 grants per year to our teachers. And I'm going to slow down. I'm starting to talk fast. This is a little what I think that I would love to impart upon y'all, because I feel at times this gets lost in the foundations building and doesn't bubble up to your level enough where it should, because this is where our involvement becomes a little bit more two-way. Our grants are, we distribute grants 2 times a year. An applicant can request up to $10,000 in what we call a standard grant and $25,000 in what we call a Pendergraph grant, because we received a significant gift from the Pendergraph family a while back, and there was a naming opportunity that happened there. But the part that I think might interest you is the pre-qualification that we have in place for any staff or teacher that wants to apply for a grant. And what this means is, before they can get into the application itself, they have to have supervisory approval. And so there is a pre-qual that pops up, and it asks them 4 very important questions. First of all, are you going to ask for personnel? Personnel is because we feel like that should be within the district's budget, and we don't want to interfere with anything that might be going on with what is in your policies and procedures. Are they going to ask for capital improvement? I know David Tate's behind me, and he knows why that's important, because they can't go building something without getting approval from somebody, and so we don't want to fund anything that's going to come through. Are they going to ask for professional development, and are they a staff member of the district? If they answer inappropriately to any of those questions, they cannot access the application. At that point, we are asking them for further information, and that information is a pretty small form in which they must write themselves. Then they physically have to go hand it to their appropriate supervisor and make sure their supervisor knows that they're making an application that goes above and beyond the normal policies and procedures of the foundation and hopefully the district. And if they have any questions, they're to run it up the flagpole and go to someone above them. That is our stopgap to make sure that we don't interfere with the business of the district. After that, if they pass through those areas, then the board reviews the grants. We use a point system in which the highest scoring make it the cut. We get about, last semester, we got $800,000 in request. It's real hard to spend $57,000 on $800,000 in request, and that's where we were last year. So we went into spring a little bit because the requests were so huge. Then I come back with my team and we do naming assignments, and another area that is of interest to y'all is that we do give them a P card. They are given a fully loaded card that the foundation monitors through our bank account of their fully awarded amount, so they are able to go out and buy their supplies or pay for their events or whatever they need to do. We see those transactions in real time, and so they know, and the contract that they sign, which is actually the next one under that bullet, should they violate, that's the wrong word, the agreement, we stop payment on those cards. We freeze them. And I'll be really honest, we've never really had any problem with that. I mean, very, very seldom. Somebody might have a wrong idea about what their budget was, but as their budget is submitted, it must mirror what they're going to spend. And so we look at the budget to that of what they are spending their money on. After we are done using the endowment funds and they are spent down, we will write a grant on behalf of an applicant who has submitted an application to the foundation. That's an important thing to remember, because we will not submit an application on behalf of a teacher who has not submitted an application to the foundation, because that means they have not gotten necessarily the supervisory approval, they've not gone through that pre-qualification process, and they've not been reviewed by our board of directors. So that means if they have passed all that mustard test, then they're probably good to go for a pass-through grant. I will take that application, I will match it up with a mission of another foundation in our area, and I will call that applicant and say, let's just go with this, and then we will make a application on their behalf to a foundation or a civic group. On occasion, we do have people who walk in the door and ask for a designated gift specifically towards one of our grants that have been submitted, and we also will accept that. Am I moving too fast? Okay. Then we do the scholarships. I'm hurrying through this because it is a much smaller pool of our activities. We have 7 funds. They range from $1,500 to $6,000. We have 3 of those which are donor advised, which means our board does not have any designation or any idea how those committees are going to choose the applicant, and the other 4 are decided upon by a scholarship committee among our board members. So this is the breakdown from, I believe, 16, because I'm getting ready to post 17. So 339,000 went out, 19,000 and change in scholarships, 144,000 in grants, and 175,000 in donations. And those are included, that includes our pass-through grants, as well as our unrestricted money that comes into the foundation for our operations. I'm going to go quickly through the fundraising activities. These are the unrestricted activities I spoke of earlier that help us keep our doors open. We have an annual fund society in which donors contribute in a pledge to us annually at $1,000 or $500 a year for 5 years in a row. And we have corporations who also do the same thing and give us a gift annually to keep us in operation. And that operation also includes managing and administering the grants and scholarships. That's another full-time job in addition to fundraising, because it is that the applicants are calling us and engaging with us probably 2 to 3 times a day. If you've got 70 to 100 applications out there at various stages, they've got questions and they've got concerns, and so we're managing those. And then we also fundraise through these 2 events, which all of y'all have attended and are fantastic. I love them. So I think what Justin and I, when we started talking a little bit, was about what we're doing into the future. So I've kind of given you some past, and I've given you what we've been doing over the last 15 or so years, and now we're looking at moving ahead. And so the foundation had a strategic plan. Strategic inquiry, if you want to, and looked at where we want to go. And 5 things bubbled to the top. And one was about our endowment. The other was in donor development, grants management, developing a stronger relationship with this district and the schools, and reaching underserved students. So as far as the endowment grows, the needs assessment showed that the foundation's board of directors would like to grow the endowment. And I'm talking significantly. We hope to do much more than we're able to do now with the endowment over the next 3 to 5 years. And that's going to take a lot of time from our staff. But our goal is to explore big picture strategic initiatives along with the district. Not giving away too much of that, but keeping the activities that we normally do, but adding on another component that might allow us to look at larger projects with longer sustainability. Because right now these projects are completed within a semester, but if we were looking at a larger project, we might be able to have some longevity and move the needle. Donor development, working again with the collaboration within the district, finding more routes to have our donors see the grants that they funded in action, being in the buildings a little bit more. We've not been really able to massage that activity very much, but we think that would be greatly beneficial for both parties. And improve alumni relationships, and basically improve parental awareness. Believe it or not, a lot of parents don't know what we do. It's hard for us because of 2 staff members to get in the schools as much as we need to get into the schools and talk to those various groups when the parents are all in one room. And I think that's going to involve maybe a little bit more district collaboration for us to do that. Teacher awareness, another thing that it's amazing. I'll go in and say, how many of y'all know who we are? And I get a handful of people raise their hand, and we would love to reach as many possible. Grant writing training and opportunities during teacher orientation to put something in there that lets the teachers know that we exist. And I think I'm repeating myself, but it came up so often, explore the needs of the district and the schools to align goals. That was the thing that kept coming to the top over and over again. And developing a deeper partnership with the district through collaboration and promotion. You guys are the #1 avenue to help us grow and to give you more resources. We do what we can on our part, but y'all are absolutely imperative to us to get out to those parents and other teachers out there. And then reaching underserved students has been something we have that's taking a little bit of a backseat, but we don't have as many Title I schools applying for grants from us, or schools that have very small PTOs. Although we're not positive why, we're kind of exploring that option as well. And then working with y'all to determine a clear direction for how we can help move the needle in those areas with the underserved schools and their benchmarks and achievement gap and what have you. And that's it. I'm done. See, did I make 20 minutes? Was I quicker than 20 minutes? I talk a lot. But do y'all have any questions for me? I mean, that was a lot to absorb. I went through about 16 different categories. But
Kimberly, I was really impressed, as always. I have a question. I think you've done really well in terms of teaching teachers knowing what you guys do. In a given year, how many teachers end up getting grants?
So we do about, on average, I think it's about 25 to 30 per semester. Or, yeah,
So
75
50, 60 a year, 75 a year, that's great. So almost 10% of, about 10% of our
And
teachers.
ranging from $1,500 to $10,000 to $25,000. I would say that a lot of our teachers are running around $2,500 to $5,000 requests. I mean, they're not huge. I think that one barrier that we have seen, and we're putting in our next guidelines, so when they roll out in December, they will see, how do you plan on sustaining this project after funding? That's something that our board keeps coming up with. This is such a phenomenal program, and what are we going to do about that? And a perfect example is Ozark Natural Science Center. Every year we've been giving them $9,000, and we don't ever want to take away the opportunity for every fifth grader to go to the Ozark Natural Science Center, and spend the night and see that and have that opportunity. We think that that is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity for some students, maybe the only time in their life they're going to be able to do that. That is perfectly within our mission. But to sustain them every single year might be neglecting someone else who's got another plan out there. And so where that $9,000, is it really suitable there? And that's what we're kind of struggling with at this point. And so we're trying to ask them to have some sustainability plans. I have encouraged a lot of recipients to use the equipment or the resources that we're giving to develop a way to sustain their project. And some are able to do that and some are not. Some have just non-consumables that they need to continue on and that will be gone after the grant money's gone. And then the program either fizzles away and then we feel like we've thrown money at the wind, or maybe not. Maybe it was a great time to do just a one big bang up kind of job. So.
I'm going to push on the spot. What are a couple things that have been kind of sustained over the years, you think?
Definitely Ozark Natural Science Center. The Breakfast Club at Ramey Junior High has been phenomenal. It's been really, really, really growing. A whole lot of attention. The engineering program at Woodland Junior High. And, sometimes it just happens to be an applicant who's just a go-getter. I'll be honest. I mean, we feel like there's so many teachers out there that really would have an opportunity to do a lot of exciting things that are above and beyond the normal classroom experience if they just knew that we were there. I mean, I just am astonished sometimes that they don't know we exist and are available to them.
Camber, you said that we're an important link for you, right, as you reach for these next goals. What is it that you need from the board in particular? I understand that the district is obviously very important.
Yes. Well, I think that the goal would be maybe over the next few months, year, that we have a little bit more collaboration among maybe our board, and Justin and I talked a little bit more about the two boards talking together, just to make sure that what we are funding is lining up with what y'all are seeing strategically yourselves. Outside of the really feel-good activities, there are a lot of feel-good activities. I mean, there are some really fun stuff. I mean, when Aaron got the award with the equestrian bridges, I mean, that was one of our favorite projects, watching those children get out of school and fund and watch them get on those horses from the special ed community that's in our school district. I mean, we've had many donors go out there, and that's phenomenal. But there are some other overarching bigger issues that we would like to know about and be included in, so that we can make some very promising, basically investments to the district.
So is that like a one-time meeting each year you would like, or twice a year, or what is it that, if you had what you wanted, what would that be?
As much as possible.
I just want to hang out all the time.
I mean, everybody's limited in time,
Right.
but
Tomorrow night at Cameron.
yeah, I'll be back there having dinner with you. I think that we could work that out, where maybe something a little bit more consistent, that maybe we could give the cabinet and the board involved, and my board, and I think they'd be ready and willing and excited about that.
So Megan, I think that's a great segue question, because that's where I was hoping we could take the conversation. Next is that alignment and that collaboration that Cambry was talking about. I think that's what we've really honed in on, with the prospect of the foundation going forward with a drastically increased endowment and a desire to fund kind of larger programmatic type things. That naturally requires more alignment. You're not talking about a one-time grant for purchase of a musical instrument or something like that. It's a larger program, and so that's what we've been talking about for year and a half or longer. I mean, I know you've been talking about longer, but Cambry and I've been having those conversations and with Dr. Colbert, you know, since the summer, and it just seems like we've been going along together in partnership since '92, and things have grown, and then now there's this opportunity, and it would be good, for one thing, to have a bit closer relationship with more systematic contacts, but also to work in alignments. We've done all this work on our end too, on strategic planning, and they're doing all this work. And when Dr. Colbert and I are in these meetings, it's really interesting. An entirely different board. It's really, except for Dr. Colbert and I, we're the only two from our side here who's on that board, and you hear some of the same things and some of the same concerns, and so that doesn't happen randomly.
No, we live
That
in the
happens
same
because
town.
we have people
We have
thinking
the
the
same-
same
yeah, we
things,
have the same-
and so you know, it doesn't require all that much thought to say, hey, we should get together, and so I think that's what the idea is, and I think we're kind of viewing this as a sort of a kickoff moment. I always like to have another explanation on how the grants work, because even though I've heard it 10 different ways, it's always a good refresher. And my understanding is that part of it continues on, and it's very popular and important, and it grows. And but if there is to be kind of a new phase of that it's going to require us to get together a little bit. And I think it'd be a nice thing to do. So I think the idea is bringing forward something where we can kind of kick that off, just like what we've done with City Council and some other outreaches that we've done. We think the time is right for that.
And if I can say it, I hope I didn't mislead anybody. The foundation did not have any, and the strategic plan did not mean that we would change the business that we've been doing. So we would grant all of our teachers as we have been, but there might be an opportunity with endowment growth to have a second piece that might be a little bit larger, systemic support or an investment. A great example was when Holly was the director of the foundation. Tyson funded part of the Agri department, and there was, although they gave $75,000, which is incredibly generous, there were $25,000 given over 3 years. And so while the foundation might not be able to shoot out, you know, $700,000 or $1 million out of that endowment, but there might be something looked at that we might say, let's invest this certain amount in this particular area that is a common area for a couple of years until that issue is solved, that needle is moved, that goal is achieved, if that's the right way to say it. And I don't think that would be completely on the ownership of the foundation to determine. I don't think that would be a right way to go about that, and I think that our whole board feels that way, so.
And part of this too, last year in Denver at NSBA, I attended a session where there was a foundation, a public school foundation in Washington State, that did this transition from small grant to larger programmatic things. And it was fascinating because they talked about it, and they said the thing you have to do is come together and collaborate, because you really have to align those interests in order to get that done. And I came back from it and talked to Cambry at that time, and Cambry said, well, that's interesting, because that's exactly what we're thinking of doing. So it kind of all came together, but it's also nice to hear from, you know, another group that has made that jump, that this is what you have to do. And that's the type of thing they're doing. They're doing more programmatic support from their foundation, and on kind of big, longer-term, 5-year type plans that were very interesting. So it's an exciting possibility for our district and for the foundation.
Yes, absolutely. Any other questions before I depart? I really appreciate y'all giving the time this evening, and hope we can start kicking it in.
Okay. Thank you, Cambry. And I'll give equal time to Tim Hudson on talking about the adult education program.
you know, you had a prop and visual aids and stuff. So Dr. Osterling and I are going to do an interpretive dance about adult education. I serve as a liaison on the Adult Education Board. Met just end of last month. We meet over in the former Jefferson School building. It's a really interesting array of folks from the NTI, the business world, folks who work with the incarcerated population, and then Dr. Osterling and I. I'm not sure which one we fit into, but I'll just share a couple of things. When we talk about the regulation of education and how compliance is determined and effectiveness, there was an effort with our program and some corrective actions needed to take place that we were in compliance with, and I'll read these. Title II of the Workforce Innovation and Opportunities Act of 2014, the Adult Education and Family Literacy Act, the Arkansas Adult Education Program Policies, the National Reporting System for Adult Education Guidelines, and the Learning Disabilities Policy Manual. Just a whole lot of compliance and meeting of standards from other organizations. And so I applaud Dr. Cornelius and Dr. Osterling and all the folks who are part of it, because it's not an easy thing to accomplish. I just want to highlight a couple of things. One of the goals from the previous year in terms of meeting the state requirements to have an advisory board with guidelines and bylaws, and we were the first board in the state to achieve that. And in fact, a number of the things that we're doing with our board have become kind of what the model for other adult ed programs around the state are going to be expected to do. There's a program goal of it's called the efficient and effective, the E&E rate of 45%, working towards that. And then there's also a goal of a 65% post-test rate, which is also a state requirement.
Tim, that was the E&E?
E&E,
okay.
yes. Efficient and effective. There was also interesting discussion back in the summertime about working with NWAC on an EMR class, which I think would be emergency medical responders. And then one other area that those of us who've attended the adult ed graduation, there are a number of students who are getting their GED who are incarcerated. And Act 309, a state act the legislature passed, requires GED completion for a certain type of incarcerated individual. And so those folks, we actually have some program folks who are actually in the detention center delivering classes and content, and then they come and participate in the graduation ceremony. They're wearing gowns and the orange jumpsuit underneath. And I think the fact that there's this requirement now that the act requires that they complete that is a good thing. Now it impacted our E&E rates and a number of other things in terms of the population that we're dealing with. And what I really appreciate is that our leadership and the folks who oversee the program work very hard to be in compliance, but focusing on the goal, which is to provide educational opportunities for folks who, for whatever reason, and wherever they were, in the typical K or pre-K through 12, just didn't get there. And so we meet people where they are, literally, sometimes in jail. Dr. Cornelius and all those staff are to be commended for their work. I would like, maybe we'll talk about it on our overall board calendar. It probably wouldn't be a bad idea for a little more robust presentation from the adult ed staff themselves. But it is impressive what they do, and they're, I forget who it was at the last meeting. Dr. Ashley was talking about how excited to see one of the graduates through the detention center program. The woman who coordinated that ran into one of the graduates at a store, and the graduate was working, had a full-time job. They recognized each other, but kind of gave the high sign and didn't go into detail about how they knew each other. But it's nice to see that we're working within our school system to meet the needs of all students all the way up through as old as they get. So, appreciate you. That's it.
Thank you, Tim. So I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Colbert for superintendent's report.
Thank you, Mr. Eichmann, and to the board and to the public. Just a few things I'd like to let the board know and the public that, you had charged us to create a mentor task force as well as the mascot. Both of those committees have been formed. We hopefully would start meeting with both groups after the holiday and work through January and February and have something back to the board at either February or March. So we appreciate all of the teachers and parents and former students and all who have agreed to serve on those committees to help us work through the process with both the mascot as well as the mental health issues that we are going to be addressing. The second thing is that, as you know, communication and being transparent is important to us as administrators, and so especially trying to make sure we make and go out and talk to all the teachers. So myself, Mrs. Johnson, and Mr. Lawson, we have been visiting the teachers doing their staff meetings, and so far we have met with Vandergrift, the high school, and Washington. Those meetings have gone over very well, giving the teachers and staff members the opportunity to ask any questions that they have concerning different concerns, and also us updating them on things that's happening within the district. We also do have a monthly PTA, PTO President Council. This last month, we did have the opportunity to allow the staff to present information to them about the central registration as well as the social worker program. They were very appreciative of us sharing that information with them. We also had the opportunity to, and several board members, to attend the first annual ESL exit ceremony that we recognized 144 of our students receiving proficiency in their language, English. And so we're really proud of that program. Hopefully it will be an annual event for the district. So thank you, all board members, for being there with us. As you know, that we are one of 103 districts who have agreed to pilot the pre-AP program. Last week, we had the opportunity to host 3 representatives from the College Board. They visited FHS. Thank you, Dr. Dawson, your staff, for allowing them to come in and observe the students throughout the program. We had very good comments from the representatives from the College Board, praising the teachers and the programs and things that we're doing here in Fayetteville. And so that's all I have for right now, so thank you very much, and things are looking good. And so as you know, that we're getting ready to have Thanksgiving break next week, so we all looking forward to that, so thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Kohler. I'd like to point out that our superintendent last week was honored by the University of Arkansas in receiving the Silas Hunt award last week, and I know that was a big honor, and very proud of you, seeing you up there on that stage. It's great honor for you and for our district.
Thank you.
So, great. Well, so that concludes the superintendent's report, and we're going to move ahead into the consent agenda, and that agenda is before you. I do not think there are any slip sheets on that, are there? I didn't think so. So at this time, we can entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented, or pull out an individual item for separate consideration.
Move to approve the consent agenda.
Okay, as presented, yep.
Second.
Okay, there's a motion and a second. Is there any discussion from the board? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say no. Okay. Consent agenda is approved, 7-0. Next up, we have a presentation, which I think is pretty timely, because we've had quite a bit of information gathering on ESSA. The state report card just came out, and is that going to be you, Dr. Weaver? So if you'd like to go ahead and come forward, and look forward to hearing what you have to say.
I'm going to introduce Dr. Kelly Dugan this evening. Dr. Dugan will present on the Every Student Succeeds Act. Some of you have heard of No Child Left Behind for over the past decade. So ESSA is the new term. You could say the old No Child Left Behind, but there are several changes. Before I introduce Dr. Dugan, I'd like to recognize a few state boards that she is a part of. She has been asked to be on the Arkansas ESSA Accountability Advisory Team, so we're very honored to have someone from our school district on the Arkansas ESSA Accountability Advisory Team. and she has also recently been asked to serve on the Arkansas District Test Coordinator Advisory Panel. So she serves our district well and is a great leader, and she's also serving as a leader at the state level. So at this time, Dr. Dugan, if you could present on ESSA to the board. Thank you so much for all you do.
Thank you. All right, so y'all have the handouts, right? So as we
Yes,
move
we
through
do.
the handouts, I'll explain it. So ESSA replaced No Child Left Behind. It is a lot different than the No Child Left Behind law was from 2001. Arkansas really got to pick their own plan. So they spent over a year working with stakeholders from all over the state to develop the plan, and in January of 2018, the federal government approved our plan. So each school receives an index score based on several factors. So the two big factors that the schools have are achievement scores. So the achievement scores are talking about the ACT Aspire. So as we go through these, if you need me to stop and explain where they're coming from, just let me know. We also get measured on the growth in achievement Aspire on ACT Aspire. We're also, and I'll skip down one, to the English language learners' growth in English proficiency exam. So that's another part of our growth in student achievement. For our high schools, and we actually have 2 high schools in the district, but just so you'll know, one of them is Fayetteville High School, the other one is the Virtual Academy. Alps is not considered a high school. Whenever they wrote this law, all the alternative schools in the state are actually, those students are basically put back in the school they're zoned for. So in our district, we only have 1, so all the Alps students will come under the Fayetteville High School. We also every school gets some of their points from school quality and student success indicators, and I'll talk a little bit about what those are. So the scores are calculated by, for elementary and middle schools, and for the purposes of ESSA, Owl Creek is actually considered an elementary school. All right, so for those schools, 35% of their score is weighted achievement, and 50% of their score is growth. So the growth achievement is coming from both ACT Aspire and from the ELPA 21 test. So as students, and we were talking about the exit ceremony, as students progress in their proficiency of English, that counts as points toward our school. School quality and student success indicators are 15% of the index score for elementary and middle. In high schools, the weighted achievement is still 35%. That is coming from the ACT Aspire. And then the growth and achievement is, it's actually changed to 35% for high schools. And then the other 15% is actually coming from graduation rates. So 10% comes from the 4-year rate, 5% comes from the 5-year rate. And then again, 15% is coming from the school quality and student success indicators. So we'll go through what's included in the SQSS, is what easier way to say it. For elementary and middle, there are 4 components. Those components are reading on grade level, which means if a student is proficient on the ACT Aspire in reading. Student engagement comes from attendance rates. So each student in the school we get a point if they've missed 5% or less. We get half a point if they've missed between 5% and 10%, and we get 0 points if they've missed over 10%. So that roughly translates to they can miss about 17 days per year, and we would still get about a half point, but anything over that we don't get points for. Science achievement and science growth both come from ACT Aspire. Okay, on page 2, high schools have, they have 11 indicators that make up those 15%, so each one of those is not as impactful on the score as it would be in the elementary and middle schools. Reading on grade level, that comes from the 9th and 10th graders' Aspire scores. Student engagement, this is all students, this is again their attendance rates. Science achievement and science growth are coming from 9th and 10th grade Aspire scores. Every student is tracked every year on how many credits they've earned. So as long as the student is making adequate progress, we'll get 1 point. It's considered 5.5 credits per year as far as S is concerned, is making progress, okay? High school GPA, the rest of these, high school GPA, that's your senior year. If you graduate with a 2.8 or above, we would get a point for all those students. ACT scores as your composite score, so a 19 or above would give, we get a point for those students. And then we could actually earn more than 1 point for ACT scores in math, reading, or science, because we get a point for every student who scores at that readiness factor for those 3 different categories. AP, IB, and concurrent credit, if a student takes just one of those throughout their high school career, we would get a point for that. Computer science, there are specific computer science courses that if a student takes, we would get a point for that. And then community services, again, a specific class. So when we were looking at actually how many points, I did this for the principals so they could see just how, when we're talking about where do we need to concentrate our efforts when it comes to ESSA index scores, what's going to be the biggest return on investment. And it always comes down to achievement, making sure that students can read and do math. So that's the biggest point. So if you look, you can look at the charts on the next page. Okay, and it just kind of shows you that some of the things that that are important, of course, attendance is very important. If a student's not at school, then they can't learn, but it's not quite as impactful on the score as maybe their ability to read. On page 3, I've got how our ESSA index scores related to school report card grades. So before we go into what our grades were and what our scores were, I'd like for you to see the difference between the 2017 report card cutoffs and the 2018. If you look elementary, to get an A, it's actually a point lower this year. And then you see the same thing in middle school. Actually, to get an A in middle school, it's 3 points lower. And then in high school, it's about 2 points lower. So that means across the state, scores went down a little bit, and we're gonna get every year we'll get a new rating, so it's based more on percentiles than it is on just a hard cutoff. And this is not in your packet, but I did want to point out that of all the schools in Arkansas, we had 7 schools who are in the 90th percentile or above. We had another 3 schools that were in the 80th percentile to 90th. And so we have 10 out of our 15 schools are in the top 20% of schools in Arkansas. So I just wanted to point that out, that we are very high performing across the state before we get into our actual scores.
Yeah, I don't know if this is appropriate to say now, but something I've heard, so I just wanted to ask you about it, is that there's a lot more, this is a little unfair to schools that have a higher percentage of poor kids because achievement varies a lot more than value added. Value added meaning sort of how much growth a kid has in a year versus achievement is where they are. And because the achievement varies more, it really has more impact on the index. Is that true?
It seems, I mean, we know that achievement is impacted by socioeconomic factors.
Mm-hmm.
If you look for elementary, though, we acquire 50% of an elementary, their scores would be attributed to growth. So it's kind of one of those things, and this is the problem with the way that the state measures growth, is that there is some big formula. They pretty much do a different growth every year. As part of the panel, we've asked for some more information from the state to at least tell us who is growing, who did we get the points for? Because at this point, we're giving a score. There's no way for us to tell which student made growth. It does seem to be, just based on what I can see, that our lower socioeconomic schools are being more impacted by this.
We can sort of tell for our own purposes with MAPS testing, but that wouldn't really translate, that would relate to this, but it wouldn't translate directly to it maybe.
Yeah, we tried to look at those correlations. It's a little bit off, but they're getting ready to do a new norm study for MAPS. I think it'll get better. Any other questions?
So you don't have detail on who grows? You just know the school in general?
All we're given is a school score. If a school, and basically what the state says is if a school gets an 80 or above, like an 80 is 1 year's worth of growth. So anything you see in the column, which we're getting ready to look at those scores, anything that's above an 80 is considered higher than normal or more than 1 year's worth of growth. What they don't do is we have no way of knowing who it is we got those points for. So we've asked, as part of the advisory panel, we have asked the state to give us something, even if it was just literally tell us how many kids made growth, because that's something we don't know, because we also lose points for students who didn't make growth.
Well, they clearly have that. They just are not given it.
They,
They're
yeah,
not breaking
right.
it down.
But don't we have other measures for all those things? I mean, the school score is impacted by whole cohort things like attendance, right? And
Oh, yeah, we know
have
attendance.
each.
But you don't
Right.
have but you don't have that piece, the growth score.
Attendance is SQSS, isn't it?
Yeah, attendance would be part of the 15%.
Right, no, I just mean that we have achievement data on all our kids who are measured. And,
We have
we
achievement.
know who's making growth year over year in, like, according to maps, according to, I mean, we have other measures for that. ESSA is a school rating, right, not a individual child rating.
No, it's an individual. Actually, their score comes from individual children. So a child is only compared to their own growth. It's not a cohort growth. It's so, basically students are tracked from when they start taking it, and if they're making what the state considers above average
Okay.
growth, then we would get an extra point for that student.
Is there any talk about SQSS? Because that seems, just from an untrained eye looking at that, it seems like a difficult indicator too, especially for elementary where there's fewer categories, and if you are in a lower socioeconomic group, attendance is weighted more heavy, and it seems like a double dip with growth achievement, that you have achievement factors within SQSS that are also in the 50% achievement growth. I mean, adjusted achievement area as well, and that seemed kind of harsh.
Yeah, I agree. So reading we're kind of deemed twice for reading. Yeah, I would agree with that.
Yeah, you're right. It seems like a double hit, and so if you're in a school that has a poor or more transient demographic, then you're just going to take two hits.
Yes.
On that, and that when you looked at that data for our schools, that seems like where you'd have one of those schools that had a high growth number or one of the higher growth numbers and a really low SQSS, and that seems to be a little off.
Right, I would agree with that.
Is that intentional, though? I mean, I feel like if we're graduating kids who can't read, that
It is
like that
intentional
it's such
because
a-
when the state created the ESSA plan, we wanted to, well, not we, but they wanted to reward certain things we know that count toward achievement, which would be, we know if they don't come to school, they're not going to learn. And so they wanted schools to concentrate on ways to get kids to come to school. So if you put it into the accountability program, schools will work harder to get kids to come.
Sorry to take you off track.
That's okay. Anything else?
I'm a little off topic, not totally. I just found out today, I guess 1 or maybe 2 years down the road, one thing people have talked about for 10 years is that a lot of times we actually spend more on schools with more rich kids than we do with schools with poor kids, just because, for understandable reasons, teachers later in their careers may want to switch to those schools. And I gather a year or two down the road, one thing we'll be reporting is actually how much money we're spending by school, which I think is actually kind of a good thing to, not that we necessarily need to follow with any policy change, but I think it's something people should be aware of and be discussing a little bit.
Okay. All right, so on page 4, I've listed all of the ESSA scores. You can see by category what each school in the district got and their grade. And then at the bottom is their 2017 report card grades and 2018 report card grades. I mean, for the most part, Fayetteville Public Schools does really well. If you look at our grades, we had 7 A's, 6 B's, and 2 C's.
I really don't like you know, the scoring thing that someone can take a quick look and say, oh, there's your average or below average school, or the only good ones are the ones that have the A's, or that's the ones that are, you know, accomplishing things. And you've got to go into a little more detail as to, well, no, here's why this one's an A or that one's a C. But I realize we like measuring things, and people in positions of authority want to make sure they can measure and report accountability. To the extent that it causes us to pay attention to important things, but when you come down to the end of it and this school is a, you know, letter grade, whatever, that's just such a, in some cases, unfair way of assessing what's happening there.
And in this case, it's a true comparison to other schools. So what we're doing is, as long as we beat enough other schools, we continue to make our grade.
Beating other schools, that's
I guess I have another question. When you were talking about at the beginning that the entire scores from this year dropped down from last year because people, I guess because the pool was lower. Does that make sense?
The scores were
scoring was
lower across the state.
So what happens if they continue to go down? I mean, do we just make adjustment? I guess that bothered me.
Well, one of the things that may have caused the difference is ACT Aspire changed some of their proficiency levels a little bit. And so the state is actually applying to the federal government to reset our benchmark year. So right now, 2017 is our benchmark year. And then due to whatever ACT Aspire did on their testing, the state's going to actually, they've already applied for a waiver to actually reset our benchmark year to this year. So hopefully scores will go back up because we're now used to the benchmark, whatever. I mean, everybody now, and this is also really the very first time we did this. Schools got their ESSA score last year right before testing. So we didn't really know what we were concentrating on. I think this year we have a much better handle of what it is the ESSA index scores are measuring, and so what we need to do to help students. It focuses our efforts.
Race to the bottom, which is a whole different scenario.
So on page 5, I've broken up the ESSA index score so you can just see the difference, but again, there were a little bit of changes in the way the ACT measures some of these things. And then the rest of this, and I don't know how much in detail you want to go or how much time you want to spend on this, but I've broken down each one of the components of everything we get a grade for so you can see the difference between last year and this year, and then the impact on the score. So one thing I tell principals is we need to look at what is going to impact scores the most, which comes down to reading and math. And, you know, the things that we know we need to concentrate on. Do you have any part of the SQSS you want me to explain a little bit more or talk about the differences in high school compared to the other schools?
Are you talking about on the SQSS scores or on the factors?
Just any of it. It
any
doesn't
part of
matter.
Well, I'm just, in general, it's been a bit of a difficult nut for me to crack. Understand. I mean, I can understand achievement. I can understand growth, and then some factor that is school quality is something I don't understand. And I understand what they're trying to take a stab at, and I wonder how variable. Or how much that's going to change. Are they going to? I hope there is something that they look at and tweak.
I think that's the way the system is set up. Is just why we're applying for some waivers now. We've seen what it looks like in real time. We see what happens, and so now they're saying, can we adjust some of this stuff?
I will say that I really love that science is highlighted in the school quality because I feel like I think when schools gear themselves, and I hope that this does not happen as much in Fayetteville as it does in some other schools, when schools and teaching and learning gear themselves entirely towards test achievement, and it's just English and math, that for kids that really need that test prep, that science falls entirely off the radar. And I just think it's such a huge driver for like real life and the real economy, and it's interesting to children So
I would agree with that.
I think it's real easy to knock standardized tests, but I really appreciate that science emphasis in these guys.
I always think if you have a lot of good content in curriculum, if you do a core knowledge or something, it's going to boost your reading scores too, just because kids will know more stuff. So I think it's really helpful to look at these things as all together.
Yeah, and if you look at and you compare our reading and our science scores, they're very correlated. Students who have trouble in reading also have trouble in science.
We spent some time over, I mentioned this last couple of months, some training sessions going into the portal on, and sort of playing around, pulling up our schools and looking at how they are able to present that data. I appreciate hearing about the growth information that Tracy was asking about, because I think that would certainly be something that would help any school to be able to know those type of things, and hopefully we can get some of that information, because that's what everybody's dying to know.
Yeah, because that's one of the things we want to know is, so our RTI and, the things that we're trying in each school, what's working with which type of student. And so it's something that all the districts are struggling with. We don't really know where that number's coming from.
So I'm really excited by the work that you and Steve Weaver and others, lots of others in the district are doing. And I think, just two thoughts. One is I really hope in the long term we make a lot more progress on closing the elementary achievement gap. I think if we can close, or at least make progress on closing that, it's going to make it a lot easier for secondary in terms of integrating kids in all kinds of ways. But the other thing I would just say is I think data is really important to inform decisions. We really should look at it, but obviously data should never make decisions. I mean, judgment should do that. But I think we really do need to look at it, though. We need to consider it. Principals and teachers need to consider it.
I agree.
I also been listening to your presentation tonight, and I think sometimes when we look at how to improve scores, people think a lot about how to like game it. And I so appreciate, just in terms of what Bob was saying about thinking about applying like real thought and heart to the data that you're looking at. And I love hearing you say that when building leaders ask you what they should do, that what you tell them is achieve in math and reading. Like I feel like that's really our focus, right? Is to like have kids learn. And so however you can like fiddle things around, like I just really appreciate that that's your big tip. It's like improve achievement in reading and math.
Well, and that's one thing I like about this, is that there really is no way to game it. I mean, it is, and some of the like weighted achievement, we actually get some extra points for moving kids from one category to another. So another thing I talk about is look at every kid. There's no such thing as bubble kids anymore. We need every kid to move forward, because when we concentrate on it kid by kid, that's what makes a difference.
I remember at an NSBA workshop some years ago, No Child Left Behind issues, and it was a very small district. There was a board member from that district, and they said one of their keys was to make sure that the 3 kids from some particular smart family in town were all in school on the day that certain tests were administered. That was part of their, we got to make sure that those high achievers were there in a very small, school, which that made a difference in their scores. So I appreciate that it's about every kid growing.
Yeah, and that's the
down
one,
spectrum.
I do think, No Child Left Behind was probably a little bit more punitive than this is, and this actually does reward you for making growth. It rewards you for those kids trying to catch them up. So putting the efforts where it's going to count later is really that is one thing I like about this better.
I'm the new guy, so I'm swimming a little bit on all this stuff, but are there like cohort effects when you see like large jumps or big changes in school from year to year? Is it, how does that play out if you have a certain class that's more high achievers, and then they come into the school and maybe another class leaves? How is that accounted for?
It's really not. So growth wouldn't affect growth, because growth is student by student over, from one year to the next. We do see a little bit of that, but it seems to even out. So like if one class may be a little bit higher achieving, another class a little bit lower achieving, So the scores are everybody together. So as they move through the system, especially once they get to secondary, those effects actually start to diminish. So, I mean, classes do have personalities, but we don't see very much variation in the data, though. There's not huge jumps usually.
That's because it is about growth, so that we're meeting each kid where they are, and then we need to move them their grade level. So like whether you come in and you're like killing it, we have to move, so.
And this data is old for us. The teachers have already gone through one cycle of MAP. They've already analyzed that. They've made plans. We're getting ready after we come back from Thanksgiving to give another MAP test. So while we use this and this is what I tell them, we use this as big picture data. They're making instructional decisions in the classroom on much more timely data. And one of the things that we do in their data analysis is they're supposed to look at student by student and individualize goals as much as possible.
Yeah, to follow up on what Beacon said, what you just said, I think the worst thing a parent wants to hear is, your kid already knows it, I don't have to teach him stuff, and we don't really hear that much here anymore. I'm really glad about that. Some places, they do hear it a lot. We really want to stay away from that. We really want to challenge kids or whatever level they're at.
Yeah, because and that's one thing with the ESSA, the more kids we can get into the exceeds category, the better we're going to do. I mean, you can actually score over 100% in that category.
Cool.
I have another kind of basic question. So could you define weighted achievement again? What does that?
So weighted achievement means that they're giving us a little bit of points for the kids who are almost proficient, but not quite. We get a half a point. But they're also, whenever we have students who are in the exceeds category, so there are 4 categories: needs support and close, which are not considered proficient, and then we have ready and exceeds. So when the number of exceeds students outnumbers the number of needs support students, we actually get a quarter of a point bonus for each one of those students. So the whole idea of it moves not only every student, but even our advanced students. It helps the whole school. So this really does get more down to individualized learning. We want every student moved.
The website is super user-friendly, so like if you wanted to drill down more, I think maybe you missed a certain portion of that presentation a couple weeks ago, but you can go in there and it really lists out how that weighted score, how they arrive at that weighted score. It was easy for me, not being a data person, it was easy for me to follow and comprehend for the most part.
And they've got pictures that tells you where the school is compared to the rest of the state. And it also breaks it into subgroups so you can see how we're doing by subgroup too.
You can even check out schools within 25 miles. It's kind of wild.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, that's interesting too.
Well, thank you very much. It's been a great discussion tonight. We appreciate all the information and look forward to more.
All right, thank you.
Thanks. Okay, next, we're going to move into new business and Dr. Slocum and our favorite topic, FHS parking.
I'm sure we won't have much discussion.
I mean, if you just want to say your piece and sit down, that'll work.
Yes, sir, I will.
Ballet.
Yes, perfect.
Big fundraiser for the public education.
It's a one-word presentation.
All done.
Perfect. So the first thing I heard when I moved to Fayetteville was this word called parking. And so I learned quickly that was important to know and be able to do, in the words of curriculum. So I'm going to give you an overview of a couple of things. One is an overview of survey analysis of survey data. One is all of the things that people had to say about the survey. Some of the things we have coded in the data as miscellaneous. And some of the things going forward, yes, and I'll be happy to give you more of Cliff Notes of what miscellaneous included. It was very exciting. And then as we go on, I've got another slide that we're going to talk about called solutions, which is really what we're here to discuss. So by the numbers, as you can see on both of the screens, we have currently our current state, which is where when I begin a project, it's like, okay, what do we have? Let's analyze what we know first. So what we know is we have 794 spaces. Those are broken apart, as you can see on the screen, the majority of those spaces going to students. We have students who are seniors who are automatically, if they ask for a pass, we give them a parking pass. That's the process that we have now. We also have a lottery system for juniors. They can join in the lottery and apply. If they're then rank ordered based on the number of available spaces that are left from seniors being placed in spaces. Currently, we have a partnership with the University of Arkansas, which is phenomenal. It commences typically in September after they know what the load of their lot is in lot 56. We then start a partnership discussion with them, and typically in September, and they say we will allow you to purchase X number of spots for X number of dollars. However, in 2018-19, this year, that process will be ending. We will not be able to do that process in 2019-2020 because they are going to be using that lot for dorm room parking spaces. So we've already been notified. And your next question should be, how many spaces do we use? And currently we use 60 spaces in lot 56. So survey participation, we had 1,529 respondents. That's a 34% response rate. You can see the pie broken apart for students and for parents. It was available, it was offered. We provided it to anyone who wanted to participate. Here are some of the top student concerns. Not enough parking. Yes, I know that was the shocker to me as well. Dangerous, traffic congestion, more exits, a streamlined approach, fees for parking, potholes. Parents blocking traffic was probably my favorite response, parking off campus, and priority parking. Parent concerns mirrored, shockingly, there's not enough parking. Miscellaneous, concern for future parking, parking fees, traffic congestion, no available pass, parking off campus. I'm happy to go back, review, stop, move forward. Just let me know unless you love this. This is good. Student solutions, add parking. I know, another one. Parking deck, more exits, miscellaneous, purchasing land, reviewing the current parking available, priority parking, U of A parking, moving administration, moving athletics, and for parents, parent solutions were a parking deck. Miscellaneous items, purchasing land, building a new high school, reviewing the current parking, priority parking, more exits, streamlining, moving administration, moving athletics.
Find priority parking for me.
Priority parking, students and parents both said some type of system that would allow for, if we have a senior that's moving in to be able to park, that they would be allotted a place initially. And that's the process somewhat we have in place right now. Seniors do receive priority parking. So survey reflections, 87% of our students who took this survey desire a parking pass. That's 770 students. 60% of those, however, have a current valid driver's license. Why that's important to know is I may not be old enough to have one yet at the time that I took this survey. However, I might still like to park. 76% of our students are concerned with parking. 81% reported they were employed after school. 33 of our students pay between $501 and over $1,000 to park in some cases. And 12% of our high school students at FHS participate in virtual courses. Where do you park? This is just a Wordle to show you what popped up most primarily, which was parking lot. Other survey outcomes, 42% of our students participate in 0 hour. Most of our kids on campus arrive between 8 and 8:30, most leave between 3:30 and 4. Approximately 98% of our students have internet access in their home and a cell phone. And the reason we ask that is, I know it seems like, how is that connected? As we move to more things that require more phone interaction, it's really good for us to know, could they do it if we move toward that? And so that just lets us know that that's an option for us. Freshmen had the smallest return rate on the survey. Less desirable options. Carpooling. Yeah. The reason I know this was something that was brought up in the survey that parents had a solution for, this is the state law. We don't encourage carpooling. If you're under the age of 21, you may only have one additional valid person who is under that age riding with you. So carpooling is not necessarily the best option. Continuing with the current situation or waiting to see if time's going to improve our situation. Solutions, which is my favorite part. Green.
One quick question. On the
Yes, sir.
survey, was there a percentage of bus ridership? Did I miss that?
We didn't have that, but we're going to talk about that. I'm so glad you said that. So solutions. Improving our current parking lot. One of the things we need to do is restripe our existing lots, numbering existing spaces. Right now, it's this moving amoeba, so if you ask me who's there, don't know really when, who, how, all the details of that. Creating color-coded lots, meaning I prefer to park in this section, in this area, and some type of seniority lottery system to be able to park in those color-coded areas. Filling the potholes, that's something we've heard that people would enjoy. Expanding the exits, removing the fence between administration and student parking to create additional exit spaces, and I'm going to show you what that looks like in a visual, and extending the parking lot forward, which could encompass some of the parking pavilions. Existing lots, this is a to-do list. We need to seal, coat, and crack fill our existing lots, stripe, number, and designate parking lot zones with signage in all the areas. An estimate for that is about $275,000. That's about $346 a space. So that's one.
I'm sorry, I know probably everybody of me knows this. How much do we charge per space per year for students?
Right now, we've charged a parking pass of $50.
Okay.
This is option A. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you a photo. I'm going to tell you what it is, what is the cost per space, and tell you what the option is below to try to keep them straight. So this is A. A says this is the parking behind central office, behind the location where we are now. This would, with this design, add 63 parking spaces. It would expand to an additional exit, meaning given another way for us to get out of the parking lot. It would also pave the road, which is currently gravel back there. The space cost of that is $346,000 per space. That's $5,492. So that is option A. Option B, parking beside the field house. This would encompass one of the existing pavilions that's there. We would tear that pavilion down. We've talked with athletics and understand that it's not a high-use area. However, when people go to the game, one thing that is high use is handicap access. And so this would provide two things: 27 additional parking spaces in the day. It would also provide handicap parking for athletic events within close proximity. That cost is $89,249. Again, this is an estimate. We would have to put out bids. We'd have to go through the process. Per space, that's $33.05. That's option B. C, West Side Parking Addition. This would be to add 64 parking spaces for a total of $654,000. That is $10,219 a space. And you might say to yourself, why is that so much higher? The drainage in that particular area and the buildup in that particular area is a totally different animal, which I'm sure when the building was built is the reason that that wasn't done in the first place, because it's extremely cost prohibitive. However, when we're looking for available options, there's 64 spots. It depends on if we want to invest that. In front of the parking addition, this is in front of the high school, reworking that entire area. This would add 67 parking spaces for an estimate of $309,000, which is approximately $4,600 a space. That is option D, in front of the building. Option E, FHS new parking outline, meaning looking at what we have right now and reworking what we've got right now that's already been indicated as parking. This would remove the administration fence between administration and students, and it would rework and redesign the lot to have a better flow. It would also create another exit, which is something that we've heard through survey data is a concern. This would add 66 parking spaces. The cost would be $211,000 per space. That's $3,200. That's option E.
Talking about right here.
I'm talking about where we live, right here. We are the building, I don't have a, I need a. The mouse will work. Oh, yay, okay, this is very exciting. So over here, right here, this is so old, it's like, yes, that's right, I have a mouse. Right here is the building where we are. This would be taking the fence out in between and then recurbing this area to create more of a flow. It's also creating parking on top of here. As you can see, it would take out a pavilion here, would take out a pavilion here. It would leave this pavilion here. I don't know if you've noticed, Some of you may not have camped out in the parking lot like I have the past couple of weeks. However, I've made it my duty to be in these parking lots and living, just trying to be, like if I'm trying to be a kid getting in the parking lot or a teacher getting in the parking lot, like what does that feel like and what's my problem? These right here, this is pretty crumbly. This is not very structurally sound, so that's something we would want to go back in and rebuild that retention wall, particularly if we're going to have cars parking in close proximity. That would be another conversation as part of this project for E. But this is, yes, right outside in the parking
Yes,
lot.
that 211,000 estimate, I realize, is just that footprint, doesn't include that other pavilion you were talking about earlier over closer to the field house.
I've tried to break them into bite-sized pieces so that if you said, I want to do A, I hate B, love C, never want to talk about D again, whatever, then I can assimilate the price package from that. Now, I thought that you might ask, if I were you, this is what I would ask, how much are we talking? If we do all A through E, it's $1.6 million, roughly is the total, and that would encompass, if we do all of those options, 287 spaces. So then you should be thinking, okay, so how many people said they wanted to park again? I forgot. This year we had 525 students who requested parking spaces. And then you should be thinking, well, how many places do we have again? 442. And how many to park over in lot 56? That's 60 people. So roughly, when we did the survey request, 770 told us they would like to park. And so the difference you can see where we are in terms of number. So what are some others?
700 people wanted to park. 770 wanted to park.
Correct.
And we have
442.
442 plus 287.
But only 80%.
For $1.6 million.
Incorrect. So we have
that's why I'm
440. Yeah, no, this is right. This is a great conversation. We have 442 spots today right now.
Right.
If we rework this and you say, like a mall, do all those options right now, that's really great. Then we would have an additional 287. So you take our 442.
Plus the 287.
Plus the 287, yes,
So
yes.
that still doesn't take us to 770.
Closer,
but we
though.
have spent $1.6 million.
We have. So here's some other additional solutions. So you can ride the bus, which is one. The other is establishing some type of e-bike or scooter program. I can give you about 50 examples of ones that I've researched. They all have their own pros and cons. However, it would be some type of incentive system to potentially flip someone who's not riding to riding, or if I am illegally carpooling, to not illegally carpool. Partnering with U of A Transit, it costs nothing. There are stops that are already established. It's free. Advertising the maps that are out there and saying, hey, by the way, if you live close to here, you can hop on the transit and get on the bus. We do already have students who some already participate in that, but that's one option. Partnering with U of A for Lot 99, which is down past across the street from the field, the baseball field. We'd have to work through what that shuttle would look like to get students from Lot 99 to here, and we'd have to run a running shuttle. When I've talked to students have said, I don't want to ride a shuttle. 4 years ago, we tried a shuttle. We ran it from the beginning of school until about October when students were no longer riding. We literally had a driver on a bus driving no one. And so I put that out there as a caveat to say it is a solution. However, I'm not sure if it's a long-term option.
That was the public library?
That was
from Baum Stadium.
From
the
Baum.
stadium.
Okay.
Yes. And then we also have partnerships with churches as well. The other option that we have that is still in conversation, which has not moved forward from the last time we talked, is the Lewis property purchase, the partnership between the city and the district for $2.5 million. That would relocate the baseball field to Lewis Park and thereby create an additional potential 275 spaces for us.
We don't have is there a cost ballpark on, no pun intended, to convert the ballpark to parking?
I don't have a cost estimate on that. We would have to pay for that cost estimate, which we can. But going by our other lots and the drainage issues that we would have there, I would estimate about $4,000 a space. That wouldn't be uncommon because we've got some drainage that we'd have to work through in that particular location.
I guess we'd also have the cost to build the new baseball, though,
Yes.
which should kind of be factored into that per
Yes,
space.
we'd have the cost of the land at 2.5. You'd have the baseball field to factor in the parking that we would need to establish over there, meaning lots and all of those fun things. And then we would have the additional cost of then retrofitting the vacated space. And then letters to property owners. So letters to property owners have gone out, they've been mailed, we're in discussions. Those are in different areas of flux and state. We've established already why did we need to move forward with providing us with some autonomy to be able to have those discussions, and those are ebbing and flowing as we move forward. So I guess my question for you is, what would you like me to go back to? And then my second question is, what's your pleasure?
Can you speak to really quick, since the number one request of the parents was the parking deck?
So I would love to talk about a
why-
parking deck. So a
yeah.
parking deck cost is about $27,000 a space. So it is a little counterintuitive when we're talking about money that we have to establish to put in place. There is also a different insurance rating for student drivers, known student drivers, because the question will be, who's going to park in this space? And the answer is students. So we would have a different calibrated insurance rate for what would be occurring in that lot. Not that we would have a free-for-all bumper car, however, we would have to have that moment. So safety is one thing, insurance cost is another thing, and just the cost per space at the estimate that we've received at about $27,000 a space is far more expensive than the things that we're discussing here. So in terms of efficiency, it is definitely an option, and if you say go build one, I will. But it is
No, I
really
just wanted you to have the opportunity to respond to that, since that was such a highly.
It's just, that's an excellent point, and I should have put that in there. I apologize, but it is incredibly high.
And
It's
what
almost three
about,
times the next most costly per space.
More than that.
For
because
sure.
Insurance.
For
Oh,
sure.
yeah.
and I know at one point there were just general conversations talking about partnering with the city and possibly blocking off Stone Street. What is it called now?
Yeah.
Not stop.
Bulldog Boulevard.
Bulldog
Bulldog
Boulevard,
Boulevard,
sorry,
yes.
Bulldog Boulevard.
Yes.
And just making that an entire parking lot, is that an opportunity we can visit with the city about and work through that somehow? I mean, to me, that seems almost logical, because then you've just got directly parking straight over to the school, and you can make your exits easier.
So that's one of the things we did discuss. One of the other things we talked about is finding a way to separate a couple of people. So bus drivers are frustrated with car drivers. So that's one group of people. Students are frustrated with parent drivers. Parent drivers are frustrated with student drivers. So finding a way to separate the three of those people to where they don't interact. And then faculty members who are trying to drive to get to work. So it's 4 different groups. And the conversation was, do we need to have some type of arm, some type of block to where that actually becomes the bus turnaround in that area, to where we're facilitating movement there. There are other conversations about, is that necessary? Is that the safest way? If we really needed to get in and there was an emergency, because the campus is so large, that back end, to be able to enter the back end of the campus, should that be a parking lot? So that's in terms of safety, it's like,
Well,
I mean, couldn't you
just
even
in
get
terms
closer? Go ahead.
Go ahead.
potentially.
I say in in terms of grade, not 10th, 11th, 12th, but.
I'm with you.
Where the parking lot sits and where the front door, or the back door of the high school is, that'd be a lot of dirt
Yes.
expense.
And let me just go back to this, this particular one. That's the issue that we have with this lot, because the grading in that particular area, it's a little bit San Francisco-like right there. It's kind of all over the place. So that raises the cost of that particular solution.
Of course, then you have the opportunity, which would, to me, is probably not a viable option, because it's a great building, but mow down the building and move administration to Happy Hollow.
And that was a suggestion by survey participants, and that's something that we also discussed, is are we the problem? You know, where do we need to park and where do we need to move? And so that's the other conversation about this location. This obviously would displace the 30 cars that are parking out there on average to that back lot. So we would need to rework that back lot for that to be able to happen.
No, I'm saying remove the building.
Yeah, that too.
No one's frustrated with administration though, right? It's just the parents and the
Thank
bus
goodness.
drivers.
It's
Well, no,
all
I mean,
perfect there.
You have opportunities to put it, somewhere else, but you hate to mow down a viable building for, but, I mean, then you can make all of that parking, and then you have the parking where the building is, plus remove all of the administrative people that need a parking
Now,
space as well.
I will say that we reviewed, in this particular footprint, there were two options that were on the table, that detention pond that's there and the greenhouse. The cost to change to make that one flip to add 20 more spaces. So if we parked on top of this detention pond here and the greenhouse here, it would give us 20 additional parking spaces. It would change the price from 3 to 1.3 million because the drainage is through here. So I say that to say we would have a lot of fun on top of this building also. It's a little, we have a little undulation happening under here also. So I understand why they kind of designed it the way they designed it in the motion that they designed it, because it was the least expensive way to do that, to have a building sitting in this area. But that's probably the reason at that point that they did not go forward with parking at that point, right in that location, because this is the most creative plan to give the most spaces available at the least cost.
Dr. Slocum, I really appreciate your willingness to do whatever to personally build that.
Oh,
thing.
yes,
It's so great.
for sure.
What do you think, like, as the person who's really dug into all these guys and as the professional, what do you think?
I think that we have a parking problem.
Oh.
I don't think that we need
You
I
haven't
agree
found
with
the- you haven't
parents.
found the free solution.
I agree with parents and I agree with students. I don't think there's enough parking. I do think that we need to be mindful that some of these solutions that come to the table, we can get really creative with. I know it is very easy to say that I'm going to have a parking garage, but I think that we also have to be diligent with the money that we've got, and we don't have a lot of money to do this with. So my fear factor of a parking garage would be the issues with insurance and the issues with
And like
just
actual safety, like why your insurance increases
yes,
when you build a
yes.
parking garage.
It's
Like,
truly, I've
real.
been driving for 2 days, and now you're asking me to navigate this really, this course to be able to get my car in a space. Worries me.
I also feel like the school safety plan, I don't know, that I'm a huge fan.
Yeah, yeah.
They're
yeah.
at the coziest
Yeah.
locations.
So
Yes.
crazy expensive to build a deck. I mean, and
It's
and
insane.
I appreciate you putting it per space, because when we were doing the work that resulted in this building we have, we talked about, okay, what's required, and the city has had a little change of heart in some of its parking rules and regs, but it's not just a minimum that you have to have per capacity, but there's also a maximum.
Well,
And so some of
that's
those
very
caps
true.
can be, I mean, we can request, variances and things, but, I work at Washington Regional, and we have our own challenges there. Not just the minimum, but it's that maximum. There's a cap.
Yes.
Thou shalt not
Yes.
have more than.
It's a delight, yes. And this delight, the city is allowing us, because it is an existing lot, we're going to be able to, if we go with this plan as one of the solutions, they are really working with us in this particular space because it's already existing. The city has been wonderful to work with in terms of, they understand it's an issue. They understand it's a problem. They are getting the same emails that I'm getting in terms of they're excited for a solution as well. Back to your question of what do we do, I think that we have some existing property that we own that we're sitting on top of right now that these solutions will address in terms of I don't have to negotiate with the owner of this parking lot, we own it. And I think it's sitting right outside, and I think it's something that we definitely need to address. At what rate and what pace? Of the options here, and I've only given you these 5, but I'm telling you I have rolled, thought, rethought, and tried to really be mindful of every survey response. There were 1,592 survey responses, and if you're going to ask someone to respond to a survey, you better be willing to read them. And every one of the respondents that came forward on the survey were asking for a solution. They're asking for something. And so I think any movement that we make toward that end goal is a move in the right direction, along with advertising things that are already there and already present. We can do a better job of saying, hey, by the way, U of A Transit is there, and these are the stops where they go. I think we can establish some other creative solutions with kids to try to give some incentive to make it cool to come to school another way besides in a car. And so that's on us, and that's something that I think that we can do over time. However, we do still have a deficiency in cars that would like to come here.
So I'm going to try to, this is what I hear you saying.
Yeah.
What I hear you saying is $1.6 million is a lot of money, but it is not as much money as $27,000 a spot for a scary, difficult to insure parking garage. So to me, it sounds like you're saying you would love to see us say A through E plus incentivizing cool scooters in the U of A transit system.
I would love for you to say, we really love option blah. Please go get a quote on that and build that dude, or whatever it is. And honestly, I think that any movement that we make toward a solution is in a positive direction. Do we have to do all of the options? No, but I tried to chunk them in ways that you could see, this is what it would look like. This is an estimate based off what we know right now. Obviously, we would have to truly have the process to come forward, and I would actually need to go through a bidding process. This is just to give you a basic outline. So the other potential, like, that I have on my end is you said that would be $211,000, and it's not. So that's the only negative about putting information like this out for public consumption is until we actually go through the bidding process based on that day, based on that information, this could change. But it's to give you a good kind of general idea of what we would be talking about in the area.
How many?
The best estimates from our staff, from
Engineers.
Okay.
Yes. No, we didn't. We can give you a pretty good idea, but because of the different grading, which is what we were just talking about a few minutes ago, because that varies so greatly. Something that looks very, very simple, and you say, well, just put a parking lot on the west side of the building.
Right.
You can. It's just going to cost that
So
much
it's
to
sink
do
or-
that. Yeah, I mean, we
right.
can put a parking lot anywhere you want it, but you need, it's the underlying foundation at which increases or lowers the bill. And I have to say, Dr. McKenzie at the University of Arkansas, I do owe her a major Christmas gift. She was phenomenal in helping to outline, organize the survey, and then just being a good thought partner to say that's a terrible idea or a great idea. She's wonderful. And also, I know David Tate, the famous David Tate. He is my bestie. And so when he leaves, when we talk, and he says, am I going to hear from you anymore today? Like, we're done, right? So see you tomorrow. He's wonderful. I know you already know that, but just in case you forgot.
Okay, how many total spaces did you say again if we did all of them?
A through E would be 1.6. Rough estimate, we would need to put it out for bid, go
No,
for
but how
bid.
many total spaces would
Oh,
we
I
have?
apologize. 287. Yes, ma'am. Sorry.
Plus existing.
Plus existing, yes.
Which is
442.
442. It's like you know that number right off the top of your head.
Yes.
So, I mean, this is our first pass on it, and I think we are not in a position as a group to weigh in and say, oh, I like A and he likes C, and let's bargain.
Sure.
I was about to say, I leaned over to Dr. Colbert to say it might be good if we got an email of the PowerPoint so we could.
Yeah, for sure, for sure.
Study over it.
Yes, sir.
With the multiple.
Yes, sir.
Options. I mean, I can tell you my preference is the most bang for the most buck, and so you start there. I'm not interested in filling in a hillside for parking, and I don't know if anybody else is interested in that, but I think everybody's gonna have to collect their thoughts a little bit.
Well, each of these things takes time, and as we try to explain to folks when you're in the business, well, when are they not there? Because we can't say, okay, let's close that lot in March. So we can restripe, and I mean, some of that stuff there's some things can be done over a weekend.
Definitely.
At the hospital.
And we
Definitely.
do ask that you allow us to go back, and because we need to talk to Glenda and all, and bring back a recommendation about what we can do in stages, and have a recommendation to y'all for you to vote on at the next meeting.
I thought she was hyperventilating for a second. But
So if you let us do
that's the other
that,
thing
then we'll have a recommendation for you at the next meeting.
And,
I hear you saying a step.
And at the same time, we'll send this to you,
Makes sense.
PowerPoint, for you to be thinking about.
Yeah, I mean, this is incremental.
Yes,
you know,
exactly.
This is just informational to say, the question was, where could we, if we were to, and where would it be located, and how much would it cost? What would be an estimate? So that's, all this is just
exactly.
And since we lose 60 from the university, it's a net plus of about 227, we're thinking, so.
Or does that include that?
We would, let me make sure I'm understanding the question. Are you talking about the 287?
Yes.
Yeah.
So the 287 is the net effect of A through E gained spaces. And so let me just clarify one statement. In some cases, it may be that I'm actually cutting into existing parking. However, I can exchange for 5 spots, I can get 10 there. So if I could, I did.
But I'm asking something differently. We're
Okay.
going to lose 60 from the university next fall, right?
Correct.
So it's a net plus is 227, which is still a lot. It's
Or
still
is
good.
that
So
accounting
then,
for
so
that
the 60 from the 446, we have, of the spaces we have, that we have an additional 60 that we get from the university. Those additional 60 will not be there next year.
That accounts for that.
Okay, okay.
And
Yes.
those 60s are only those 60 spots are only available in the spring semester.
Right, a certain time of the year, so.
So I don't
September
know
through
that
the end of the year.
Yeah. I have 3 quick, just clarifying questions. One thing you said about the 770 requesting spots, you did say that 60% of those were legitimate drivers, correct?
87% of the respondents wanted a parking pass. And of those 87%, 60 currently have a valid license. 60% currently have a valid license.
That's where you got the 770.
Yes.
Okay. But you already made that
Correct, but the
calculation.
second question was, do you have a license? And so it's just for us to be able to know.
Well, there are plenty of there are sophomores, juniors, and seniors who don't have licenses as well. So. Right.
But of the juniors and seniors, this year, we had 525 students request in 2018, juniors and seniors that said, I
Like
want
a
a parking
spot.
pass. Yes.
Okay, and that was my second question. So that was 2018. Do you happen to have the data for how many requests were made and granted in 2017? I know, I'm adding another data point.
did try to think of everything.
The only reason I asked that question is because I do recollect that in previous years, the people who've asked for spots have gotten spots. There was something unique about this year, and I know Byron Ziegler would back me up on that. There was something unusual about this year. I don't know if it was the system, the number of requests that were made, but we usually are able to grant don't you remember that, Tracy, that year that they spent the night out?
Oh, I remember that.
All those kids ended up getting spots. So anyway, I just think it'd be helpful information.
I'll get that.
And then the one other thing, have we had any conversation, I know you and I have talked about this, with the city about increasing any on-street parking over there on Hill or Duncan?
The city, what they're waiting on from us is kind of proposals of what we're going to do, and then we're going to start working through the process. One of the things that we talked about was on the side of the building. Let me show you. Here, we talked about, would this be a possibility to be able to turn that into, in the mindset of trying to separate 4 groups who don't really want to drive together, could this be where we could have our bus conversation happening? And the answer is no, it's
Yeah.
not. It's not. Right now, we start buses about here, and we go all the way down Bulldog. And we actually have a stop here where we have buses that are parking here. Right now, these are University City spots. The city, in that discussion, they are first come, first serve.
Well, and that street right there that you're pointing to is the reason why I asked that question, is when they repaved that street, they came up with 15 more spots, or however many are over the 10, 12, 15. That it seems to me like that those, Duncan and Hill would be priorities in terms of repaving, not only for the high school parking situation, but for football games and
Yes,
basketball games.
yes,
and,
agreed.
And I mean, we have so many university kids living along those 2
Yes.
streets. I just don't understand why the city hasn't made the widening and curbing. I mean, those streets don't even have sidewalks or curbs of those streets a priority, because it would just help so many different.
And there is a light here. There is a conversation about, what's going to happen in this location here. That I don't know the answer to those two.
Yeah, and that's the other, yeah.
These two spots here.
So there's more conversation we need to have with the city.
Yes, ma'am.
Before we just, move forward, in my opinion.
Agreed.
Dr. Slocum, I realize there's ongoing talks with some property owners. How does that change what you're doing?
So I think that there are so many potentials. However, the net, one particular property piece I think is very promising to help alleviate on a larger scale. The jack-o'-lantern approach is what I call it with Dr. Colbert, meaning this one works, that one doesn't work, this one, with them not being contiguous, it is, and the fact that I cannot have a gravel parking lot, those two things are difficult because I may go in and pave and I might get 3 or 4 or 5, 10 spots in an area, but if I could have them contiguous, then I could maybe maximize that to get 25 or 30. But because there may be a house in between or something there, it makes the process of property acquisition more difficult because I really need to know this one's on board and I have this, and then you're willing to have a conversation too.
On the cost of, if you're talking about, I know years ago, property owner or somewhere along there made a offer to the district of some, outrageous sum, and it was close to, I forget what the previous superintendent had it estimated, 15 to 20,000 per space by the time we demolished the property, did all the engineering work to pave it and make it a parking place, and it was,
Yes.
it's just a truckload of money.
Right.
And that's a city rule, isn't it, about the gravel?
Yes, ma'am.
Is there any sense in taking that jack-o'-lantern approach just for the long term?
That's the reason yes, ma'am, that's the reason I had the conversation about needing the ability, sometimes if something comes forward and we think about calculated spaces, how much is it costing, and we do a cost analysis and we say, this is great. By the time we have the 4-month duration, it's gone. It's been picked up by someone else. The lag time is too much. So I still think it's advantageous for us to be having the conversations and moving forward because we're not getting smaller.
Right.
We're going to need more space.
And
We're
so
going to
even if we
need-
purchased that property and didn't pave it and turn it into,
Absolutely,
and,
absolutely.
as
It could
jagged
be,
as that
yes,
would
at
be,
some
eventually you're
point-
not going to want to be surrounded by.
Yeah, for
right?
sure.
Possibly.
Yes,
Maybe you'd love it.
yes,
but, yeah.
yes,
And if you took the most cost-effective options, for example,
yes.
carving out some of the least cost-effective options, you still have, if you have a basketball game and an event in the PAC,
Exactly.
you still have,
Options.
you still have quite a, but you still have quite a crowd. All your spots up front are going to be completely full. And, event parking has always been a little bit of a challenge.
Definitely.
And so, long-term, if you're able to have long-term possibilities closer up front, it'd obviously be a great thing.
Yes, sir. Agreed.
Were you able to get a sense of, I don't know, I want to call it like utilization rate or how much, we could afford to kind of oversell spaces if we have X number of people requesting? How many do we actually need? Because we don't need exactly that same number probably.
Seniors are priority seated, so they're first. Juniors are in a lottery system. So keeping in mind that sophomores and freshmen don't have an opportunity to park in a parking lot is one thing. So I think the other question is that important to us? And it is or it isn't, whatever we decide there. So that's one thing. The other is we oversell by about 30%. With the unknown right now that we don't have numbered parking. So I may have sold you a parking spot and you may have, in some cases, we have students who have 4 parking spots. I don't know which one you're parking in, and I'm not reselling this one because I think you're parking in it. So the deficiency of not having numbers and not having coded lots it's this amoeba action that happens. So if you ask me if that's correct, I don't really know because I'm not tracking it with an intentional effort to say my name is Megan Slocum, and I park in spot 36 in lot X, whatever it is. It's this movement. I don't know if that answers exactly what you were wanting, but.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's probably a hard thing to know exactly, especially without the numbered spots, but knowing that we oversell currently 30%, that's good to know. One other observation, I thought it was interesting that in the complaints section, there were only a few people that complained about the off-site parking, which is maybe a little bit surprising. It seems like that's not an unpopular option for folks. So that could maybe be explored for, whether it's on street or some sort of park and ride, at a surrounding lot.
With regard to the fees, what were the complaints on the?
Particularly pertaining to private lot charges.
Oh, those fees. Yeah.
A parent paying over $1,000, a student paying over $1,000. The concern with that.
But not for our $50 charge.
No,
Okay,
no. It was for the private lots. Some responses were, why are we not controlling what the private lots are charging? And we don't participate in that process. We don't receive proceeds from it, which was another comment. That is an entirely separate.
Side business. Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Oh, one other quick comment. Some cities are experimenting with dynamic pricing for parking. I
Yeah.
think you can agree that the parking on the front row is more valuable than the parking down the hill in the back.
For sure.
And so it's just something to think about as we move forward.
I think coding the lots and color coding them also lends itself to that kind of mindset, which is something kids asked for specifically, is some type of seniority system for that to happen, meaning I like to park here because my last class is here. And Dr. Dostal is making a huge effort to have schedules available for students before school is out. So the next layer of that would be, now where would I like to park? I'm going to be finishing class here, so I would like to park there. Or I start my day here, and I would much rather park there because I know I'm late every day. Whatever it is, but letting kids make that decision based on whatever the color codes are that we go with. I like green lot, I'm going to park there in this particular spot.
I think I like that version in terms of actually meeting what the student need is over a price differential, simply because some families can pay $1,000.
I'm going to second
33,
that too.
yes.
Well,
I
on
agree.
top of that, we're the highest priced parking in Northwest Arkansas right now too, for a school, and I don't think, we want to go up on that by any means.
Yeah.
Yeah, what are our neighboring friends?
It's free.
Quite a bit.
25.
Yeah,
Some of them
Some
are
are
free.
10,
and
some are 15, and we're 50. I mean, so.
It's a range.
We've got a lot of flat pasture land in some other areas than we do.
True,
If you
true.
come from the East Coast, $50 for parking seems like, a miracle.
Or compared to the
But not for school though. Like, not for school. I mean, I
You
come
ride
from
the
there
subway,
and we,
yeah.
I mean, I personally wasn't allowed to drive to school because of the earth, but, yes, our parking lots were free.
I'll send you this information. Please feel free to follow up with any questions. If you have another solution that's option F, I will add it. I'm happy to add it. These are the ones that are on the table at the moment.
All right.
Dr. Colbert, anything else?
So
Yeah, thank you
much
so much,
for
Megan.
taking on this monster.
Oh,
I
it's
just don't
great.
even know how
It's
to
the most
thank you.
fun. I love it.
The logistical
I do.
nightmare
I
that is
really do.
parking.
I'm
Nobody in
nerdy.
this room believes you, but yes.
No, it's, I mean, I am nerdy.
Right.
I do love it because it is a puzzle. It's
It
like
is
there's a
definitely a puzzle.
solution. What are all of the solutions we could do? It really is fun.
So you're up for facility.
So
Part
what's the
two.
direction? We hanging? What do you want us to do? We need some
I th-
direction.
go
If we're going to try to move and do something with parking and be ready
You
to.
said that we were going to get that PowerPoint by email and that you wanted the option to create a staging recommendation for us.
Yes.
Right? That's what,
Is that,
I'd rather, rather than us arm wrestling each other over A versus C, I'd rather see, really it has to do what we as a district can afford.
Right.
And when, in
That's
the
what I
middle
wanted
of
to- yeah.
other facility discussions, so.
Yeah.
And we need to digest it a little bit too.
Yes, it's a lot.
Yeah.
It's a lot.
I was thinking probably need a little bit of digestion. Now, maybe we can all kind of nod that nobody's interested in a parking garage, but that,
Someone else gonna pay.
but yeah.
Excellent point. Excellent point.
And I would assume most people are, or all of us are more geared towards the most cost-effective solutions there is. And so maybe, Tim, to your point, perhaps asking you to come back with recommendations on what those might be, allowing us to consume that
Even
information
if
a
just
little bit.
the December meeting probably.
And maybe
give us
importantly,
enough time.
communicate, maybe we would take it on not to wait to December 20th for our best ideas.
Okay, had you planned on taking making any of these decisions to actually move forward in December is the question? Like, if we said go, would you be actually paving or doing anything over the holidays?
What I would be doing is starting with the bidding
Bids.
process
Okay.
That's
to
gonna-
say, yes, you want to do this, and
It's
then
gonna take a while. That's
then I
right.
can run, and then after we have bidding, then come back and say,
Right.
this is the finalized price. You say, yay, we love this, let's do that.
At a winter and some of those things,
Yeah.
you don't.
Well, below
engage in it
50
with-
degrees, it's always,
You're not going to do asphalt, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
If we do that approach, does that work for administration?
Yes, it
Okay.
does, yes.
Does everybody agree with that?
I think it just makes more
approach?
sense to have the big picture, taking all of the options into consideration versus just say, let's move forward with this option now, and then we'll move up, we'll talk about the others later. But I think it just makes more sense to kind of make
Yeah,
a
you may
decision
come-
about all of them at one time.
Y'all may come back and after Glenda recovers her breath and so forth, and say, well,
Right.
we can add 112, 65, whatever it is, in this next, over spring break by restriping in this, and we can afford that this year. I mean, this is not built into the budget for this year.
correct.
And then you may say, and next summer we can do, the next phase, or
Exactly, yes.
Perfect.
Does that work for?
Yes, sir.
okay? Is everybody
It
on
does.
board on that? Is that good? Okay.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Yes, you're welcome. Are you ready for more?
Let's go.
I will say
Okay.
Go school buses, I'm big on the big yellow bus, so let's.
Yellow dogs are
motivate
out.
you on that.
Yellow dogs are out. This is about assessment, which is going to be very exciting. It's not in Dr. Weaver's lane of assessment. However, it's talking about assessing what we have, understanding what we have. So this will be painless, I promise. Why? There's a guy named Simon Sinek, and what his mindset is this idea of the golden circle. And if you think about why you have a smartphone, if you have an Apple device or an Apple product, what he talks about is they don't actually sell phones and computers. They sell you the why, what it does, ease of use, all those things. Those are the features. And so in this golden circle, how do we leverage what we have, going from the why to the how to the what? So this is called a facility condition assessment. And what it is it is a tool where you have a third-party expert to come in to help you do a couple of things. Further refining your facility master plan, being defensible in what our capital planning is, addressing data maintenance and clear maintenance requirements, clarification on those, prioritization of strategies, what do we want to do first and when do we want to do it, visibility to our key stakeholders, and then a facility condition indexing and FCI benchmarking, and ultimately compliance with ADA requirements and standards. The other conversation that has been being had over time is also an idea of an energy audit. And not necessarily what we're spending currently on the electric bill, but analysis of our energy cost, the energy usage index as a whole. What are our building characteristics and how do those integrate with how we are appropriately using our buildings that impact our efficiency, energy used within the space in which it's contained, conservation opportunities, and of course, for us being an informed consumer. So the estimate for this, for us to have, and you have companies that you can hire that can do an FCA, a facilities condition assessment, and an energy. You can also have people that just do FCAs or they just do energy audits. But on average, the estimate for that is about 15 to 25 cents a square foot. And if you did not know, we cover 2 million square feet. 2 million. So we are a large entity. So you can kind of do the math in your head, what we're talking in terms of what that range would look like in terms of price. So the question for you is this a direction we want to go? Is this something we think is important to invest in? And Dr. Colbert, I think, has been involved in his former role, my current role, conversations around the need and the desire to move forward with these two items. So Dr. Colbert, is there anything that I left off that you wanted to add?
No.
So questions that you have for me?
I was pulling out my calculator.
I'm so glad.
So I'm gonna ask
I
you,
try to have my
He's a lawyer.
because I can't do it in my
I
head.
think you were supposed to be able to do it in your head.
I can't. I should.
Plus, it's a point on the,
That probably is.
That's right.
thanks a lot.
It's only waiting on one question.
Yeah, our board quality index just went down. But the estimate is for the energy and the,
Depends on which direction we go.
Okay.
We can either say as a team that we feel like we could probably find someone who's qualified to do both. They have skill sets in both areas, and we'd like for them to do an energy audit, and we'd like for them to do a facilities condition assessment. You might also say, no, I want you to go and find an energy audit company, and that's what they specialize in, or I want you to go and find an FCA person who will come in and do the FCA for us. But on average, 15 to 25 a square foot is, I've spoken with lots of different companies and lots of different skill sets, lots of different places across the U.S. That's a pretty good average.
Our high school isn't it LEED certified? Isn't it?
Yes.
And we built it pretty recently.
we had an energy audit done with it. It was commissioned.
So what does that look like if we exclude the high school? Like what?
We can exclude any facilities that we would want to. So what we would do is we would go through an RFQ process to say we would like your qualifications on doing the following. These are the areas we would like you to consider. This is the square foot of that area. This is the acreage that's included in that whole process for that line item. They would then go through and give us a cost analysis and an estimate. They would probably come here and give you a presentation to say, hey, by the way, this is what this would look like, feel like, this is how it rides, and then you would make a decision at that point to say, yeah, we'd like to do this. It's one of those things, though, it is a team decision, and so if we feel like it's important and we want to do that, we'll look for the best person to come in and do the job and to give you the information. But if we feel like, no, we don't want to do that, we're just at this impasse where I need to know, yeah, keep running down that road, that's right.
I recall the decision on FHS with regard to the commission energy part. There was a rate of return on it, and I can't remember what it was at the time, but it was 5 years or whatever, that the cost of that commissioning was paid through efficiency, and that's why you do that. And I have no idea, obviously what our rate of return would be on that. That's above my
Well, I
pay
think it's
grade.
also the use of the facility. So let's take, for example, some of our older buildings that aren't in use. That's going to be a different type of conversation. So it doesn't mean we don't necessarily want to include them, but in terms of the number of students flowing through that building, it's going to be a different experience because we're not all going out to recess to let the heat out and then all coming in from recess to let the heat, So I guess it would also depend on the type of facility that we're assessing. And you may say, don't include that. And so just the directive of letting us know, what would you like included? What would you not like included? Do we want to do it at all?
Well, like the parking thing, this is our first look at it, so.
Definitely.
Can you back up a couple of slides?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, so to Megan's point, the newest building we have, and having gone through the commissioning process, I don't know that we need to spend,
Agreed.
those resources on that one because it's,
It's happening.
we're not gonna do a
Or
whole
hap-
lot other than the
or Happy
stone-
Hollow.
stone
Happy
veneer.
Hollow,
I was
too.
going to say
Happy
Happy
Hollow's
Hollow.
another.
I almost wonder if we may want to just segment our facilities that are over a certain number of years old, like maybe 15 years. Any building that's over 15 years old, that we really do definitely need to have that type of assessment, in my opinion, done for the older buildings. But I don't know that we need, there's quite a few buildings that would fall into the younger than 15 years category.
Definitely.
Like even Vandergrift is only Oh, sorry, sorry.
It feels like yesterday.
Feels like yesterday.
Owl Creek.
Well, but you
Yeah,
had some
oh, great.
Butterfield, you know,
Butterfield.
fairly.
And sometimes new construction is not the highest quality construction, right? I mean, I think, but I do.
I think Happy Hollow is sort of like LEED certified.
They are, yeah. I do think it's worth having the district, like, to me, I would have a hard time, I don't know, I feel like it would be nice to have the district prioritize it in a way that makes sense. Buildings that we're concerned about with energy and, I mean, what was the other, and facility condition and stuff. I mean, I think that we have, decided as a board that we need to really be clear about our facility quality and use and examining. I mean, that's definitely a process that we're working on, and so this seems good for those ones that are on the table, but maybe less good for the ones that are not on the table, to me.
I mean, I wonder if is the marginal cost of adding more properties fairly small in terms of when you negotiate?
No, it's really that, and I'm going to say no, and then I'm going to talk to some anomaly that makes that not a true statement. In general, those that I've spoken to, the answer is no. It's a pretty straightforward square footage. If it is a separate cost, it tends to be that if it's a company that does two separate events, meaning we would go with this company for this tool and that company for that tool, it's an increased cost. It generally has been true when I talk to someone who does both, that they have the sets of experts in-house. It's generally, they give you some type of discount if you do that. So I think it depends on which way we go.
So I need to disclose that I'm on the board of the trade association in Arkansas that all these energy efficiency and renewable energy companies are members of. And I know a lot of the companies involved that would do this type of work. In terms of the newer buildings conversation, there really has been a lot of innovation just in the last 5 years, particularly in lighting, where the LEDs have come down in price so much that I think it would probably be worth including those in the newer buildings in the assessment. And in my mind, I look at these as probably two different firms working on them, because how I understand the energy specific piece to work is that you can typically get the energy audit done for free. You can either do an energy audit for free, or you can do an investment grade audit, which would have a cost if you didn't move forward with anything. But the reality is that lighting, the payback is so fast for lighting. It's going to be under 5 years, that you would move forward with it and roll that cost into it. So. The difference between energy audit and investment grade audit would be more detail, I think, around HVAC systems, and probably more building management type stuff. Megan might know, but anyway, that's what I know about that. But for that reason, I feel like separating it and going with the free services from the energy audit folks makes a lot of sense, and then looking at the facility condition assessment is probably a separate firm.
There's only one question you didn't ask.
What-
And I just
oh,
knew you were
you-
going
well,
to
you
ask
tell
it,
us
which
what
is
that
what
is.
is a facility condition index?
Oh,
And
well,
this is what it is.
we already
I
knew that.
Yeah, I knew you were going to ask it, but you didn't ask it. So there you go.
Benchmarked by peer
What is a
audit.
facility condition index?
I'm so glad you asked. Let me go to my last slide. It is represented as maintenance, repair, and replacement deficiencies of the facilities divided by the current value replacement. So it gives you just an index to benchmark against others.
So does that tell us, like, when we had our facilities workshop, we were talking about which facilities had expansion capabilities, and, I mean, does this tell us all that?
It helps you know if you should. So sometimes it sounds like a great idea, and it looks like a good idea, and you think, well, this is actually less desirable. And so you take the information from your demography study, and you take the information from your FCA, your facilities condition assessment, and you say, do these things really say the same thing? So sometimes it can dovetail you into a different direction to say, well, we thought we wanted to expand that, but based on the FCI, we actually want to do this. It's just informed.
Okay.
But you didn't ask it, so I just knew it was coming.
So, Dr. Slocum, do you need the same type of direction from us? And board, I don't know what you all are interested in, but what are the options?
Helpful to have this kind of information in the packet as we're reading it, preparing for the meeting, instead of on the spot and tell us which way to go. Because
Sure.
I'm not going to make from the hip, oh, I think it's the best thing ever, or the worst thing ever.
Sure.
And his input is great, and that's helpful, but I'm not, I don't know if we're ready in December to make that call, but.
No, and I think this was more to start a conversation, to say, if this is something that we're interested in doing, here's some information about it, here's something for you to mull over and think
I was wondering whether we would want to do the same type of thing where we have some time to, to think it through, but also to maybe come forward with a proposal on what to do, such as a recommendation.
Lowest end, and if we eliminated some buildings, but you're not suggesting that, that's still hundreds of thousands of dollars that I don't think that's a piece of the budget this year. So.
Although, one of our goals, and I don't know that I'm disagreeing necessarily, but one of the goals that we identified is to identify inconsistencies, and not only to remedy the inconsistencies, but to identify what they are so that we have equal opportunities for all our students across the district. And so to that end, I almost feel like, to do a complete survey of the entire district really is, along that line. So I think I could get behind that, already. Just because it's something that could be useful in a variety of different ways. And I just think it's something we've been talking about needing for a couple of years now. So just to keep that, I'm just bringing that out, is that we need to identify the inconsistencies, not just, where the problems are. Does that make sense?
It's just $500,000 or something. That's the thing. It's a lot of money that is not.
It is a lot of money that's not.
Earmarked in the budget somewhere. Now, if it's, again, in conjunction with, are we going to do $500,000 in parking improvements? And we've got to rely upon our financial management folks to help us.
Tim, maybe you can answer this for me, because I've never done this before. When we start to think about large construction projects, I feel like we can't do those well without this kind of assessment. How do we effectively budget for those conversations? To me, knowing what we need is a part of the cost of doing that.
That's where, with the demographers' projections, that's where in years past, we always start with, well, what are we going to need in terms of classrooms, and how many chairs and seats? We got to have seats for children to be in. And so that's where it starts, and then depending on in years past, we had the state had required. I'm going to be fuzzy on this, but there was an assessment thing that all the districts had to do about condition of facilities at a certain level. It was kind of a bare bones, and we did that, and they told us which buildings were. And part of it was we said, well, Mr. Tate will tell us which buildings are the old ones that are going to need the most work and cost the most money, but we had to go through that process. And I do not disagree that this is a useful tool. It's just when can't we lump that into the budget? The buildings that we've looked at that we're talking in terms of enrollment being potentially stressed, well, some of those were 2 years out, 2, 3 years out, and so if our construction needs are 2 2-3 years out or 3-4 years out, then, we've got time to budget for
Mhm.
next year for some
Could
of these.
could we potentially, I didn't mean to interrupt.
No, go ahead.
Could we potentially ask for this at our December meeting, that, I think what we really need is a picture, a financial picture of what pot this is gonna come out of, what impact will it have on our bottom line, where are
Okay.
we getting this money?
Okay.
And then, but also, I think, 2 different categories, and I don't know if you can do this, but to figure out how much would it cost to do a complete district-wide assessment versus, let's say, and I'm just throwing out a number, like all of our buildings over 20 years old, or maybe over 15 years old.
Okay.
And so that we can have a number comparison, because I think if we just
For sure.
we would be going a little bit blindly if we didn't know
For sure.
where we were going to get the money and what our 2 options were.
Agreed. Yes, ma'am.
And I feel like, I think what I'm trying to ask with my question to Tim is also like a legal question about where things come from. Like, can we, like the building fund, for example, like, is that like only like bricks? Like the only thing you can use the building fund for is like making a building, or is it like the assessment that goes into making a building? Like,
Yeah. Yes, we talked about that. We can use the money out of the building fund for the assessment, yes.
because I feel like I feel like we have so many moving parts in our building plan, and I'm not going to feel comfortable making a one-off decision. It's not a question of like, this school has too many kids, so we need to like boop. Like it has so many arms and legs, and I just feel like those projects are obviously so expensive. I mean, they make these numbers look very tiny, and so without this information, I just don't know how to make those decisions well.
Okay.
Does that provide you with direction? Are you
Yes, ma'am.
comfortable with
Yes.
that? Yeah.
If we were to separate out the energy piece, the district-wide audit likely would not cost anything, right?
Energy?
For the energy.
For energy, correct.
Um,
Well, and caveat would be, unless we had an end goal that we made an investment in and then recouped that investment from that. So lighting
right.
or, depending on what.
If we made improvements and decided not to finance
Correct,
those
Correct.
improvements.
correct.
Because one other thing, the state has the performance contracting program that allows for 100% financing and makes these projects immediately cash flow positive. So could free up some new cash to use for other projects. So I guess my question is, if the energy piece is free, is there a reason not to move forward with that one more quickly?
But in order for it to be free, we have to move forward with the other investment, don't we? I mean, or is it it's just we're committing to making those changes?
Yeah,
It would be a directive on my end to say, we want you to do this and move
Okay.
forward with this. And so maybe after the digestion and then me bringing back the data in December, then we're comfortable at that point to say, okay, we now are comfortable with you moving forward with this part. We'd like to think more about this
Yeah,
part.
I think that makes sense.
Maybe you guys could talk to about some of those rebate programs, like what that.
Best friend.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah,
that's beautiful.
thank you.
Not magical, Mrs. Johnson, just beautiful. I said not magical, just beautiful.
Next up, we have a series of new policies. And Dr. Ben, is that you? Yes. Okay, we have 5 policies here for us.
Well, this topic is not nearly as exciting. That's what we've
You
been
never
talking
know.
about. But we do have some revisions for your consideration in your packet, starting with 3.5, purchases and procurement of commodities and services. You have a slip sheet on that as well tonight, so if you don't have that, let me know. The policy before you, the revisions actually reflect either our current practice in each case that maybe was not stipulated in writing and in policy, but they're requirements that we, or practices that we currently use. The only thing that is new that would, is there's a new threshold for bids that's being recommended, and that's based on, we are allowed to do that now. The 20,000 was the threshold set by the state, and that has now moved to 20,500. So we'd recommend to go ahead and make that change.
What does the 3,500 mean, though? The addition of the 3,500?
For federal, those are for federal purchases. It only applies to those, and that was our current, it is our current practice. It just wasn't stipulated in our policy. It's a requirement for us, yes.
Okay. Just not sure why it's put like that. It's like all purchases between 3,500 and 20,500, and all purchases over 20,500 shall be procured by soliciting bids. Why, isn't that just saying anything over 3,500?
You have a slip sheet. You're looking at the old version from the packet.
He's looking at the slip sheet.
Oh, you are, okay.
I think it's all federal between that range and then all commodity purchases above that range. I think that's what that
Okay.
means, yeah.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't know if that, was that in the? Yeah.
The slip sheet clarifies, actually, it's the last sentence on the first page of the slip sheet. Takes one sentence from at the end of this section and inserts it there to clarify that the statement about purchasing commodities from a federal program there's a requirement to take the affirmative steps to assure minority-owned and women-owned businesses are used when possible. And so the version you had prior to the slip sheet didn't make that clear that that applies to federal programs. Okay.
Yep, sounds good.
Moving on to 3.5, I'm sorry, I'm looking at the old.
4130.
4130. School calendar. This simply adds language that it is a requirement, and it's statutory language, that the calendar would not limit or interfere with student participation in the statewide student assessment system. So it's not the calendar itself, it's the policy about developing the calendar. Okay. Okay, moving on, 5.47, bullying. This actually has added a lot of language to the current policy. However, all of this language is required to be in our policy. So it is just bringing it into, compliance in that sense.
With the state or the feds, sir?
State.
Okay.
Yes. Then moving on, if no questions on that, visitors to the schools is 6.5. There's an additional sentence that makes reference to the next policy that is before you. So it does say 6.5 does add the sentence, visitors who are level 3 or 4 sex offenders may only enter the school under the provisions provided in 6.10. So turning to 6.10, there is language added to here. Our current policy is it's titled Megan's Law. So the revision would make the title Sex Offenders on Campus with Megan's Law in parentheses. These are items that are statutory requirements and based on the levels and risk levels of sex offenders. Currently, it is what we would be we would have to do. And if a principal or director had the situation come before them and say, well, what do? They would either have to look it up in the law or call me, or I'd call Mr. Lawson, and we'd have to figure this out. It just puts it in the policy.
So by law, they can actually, so you're saying by law, by the rights of a sex offender, they're allowed to come in and do all of these things that you've listed here? Or is this what we are choosing?
No, this is by law, yes.
So by law, all this that you added, they can come into our school and not be monitored. It looks like they can go to graduation, and they can, all these other things, the offender is a student, can attend a graduation, the non-contact day I get, they can go directly and have that is a law?
It stipulates the conditions under which they would be allowed to come to school events, including graduation or ball games, depending on the level.
Can we tighten that, or we have to give them this much leeway?
I'm going to defer to General Counsel if we can make additional limitations.
And which way is it? Is level 1 the worst or level 5? What is the order? Level 4 is the highest, which means
Level 1 is the lowest.
okay.
Yet the proposed revisions are simply a restatement of the Arkansas Code, and the Arkansas Code would not allow us to change or restrict or limit the conditions under which the different levels are identified.
Sorry. That's a lot of leeway. And we can't change that?
We have to amend the statute would have to be amended to change the.
Oh, good grief. Okay. All right, then I guess we can't change it. We don't have a choice then. We have to just add it. We have to just agree to it then.
Correct.
Okay. All of this is in here, all in the red. Okay.
So it's already the law. It just provides guidance to our administrators when they have this situation come before them. So, I believe that's the last.
Well,
Okay.
I'm looking a little more closely at let's see, top of page 2 there, number 5, where it does talk about, and the offender is escorted to and from the conference.
No, not always.
Not always. They're saying if the offender is a parent or a guardian of a student, and there's a school campus where the student's enrolled to attend their conference, and they are.
I read it.
So, I mean, yeah, but we have to do what statute tells us.
The other policies, but you can, look at those references and compare and see if you're comfortable with the way that we've taken the Arkansas Code and put it into our policy.
Oh, okay, got ya. Okay,
And it's referenced there on the second page.
got ya. I see what you're saying, yeah. Okay. That's a lot of leeway, in my opinion, so.
It's a really good example of how, like what a public school is, and how complicated the mandate of a public school is, to serve all children and all families. Like, I think that we serve children whose parents are levels 3 and 4 sex offenders who have served the time that they, that have gone to prison and served time for those things and are parenting their children, and how complicated that is for society to handle. I mean, I think it's a genuinely challenging situation that public schools take up.
And there's also some of them, I presume, would have committed the offenses many years ago, I would hope, so.
Is it, just clarity, and a sex offender cannot live within a certain range of a school, right? And are they allowed regularly to be within a certain range of a school?
Yes.
On the level.
In terms
Depending
of
on
where
the
they
level.
live.
To live, but otherwise, are they allowed to even just, is it
I
just?
think it just has to do with where they live. Well,
And I think you're registered, so like what it is like I don't believe that we once someone has left prison and is like, has served their time, I think they're free to buy property or rent property wherever
They are always
they're always tracked. Like you can
And-
look up where they live. I mean,
But
and that may not be
They cannot live
true.
near a school the rest of their life, though, is what I'm getting at. It's not just the prison time.
Is that true for all levels?
I'm going to get into dangerous territory because I may not know what I'm talking about. Chris, do you know? Because I've always understood that level 1 and level 2 didn't have those restrictions. What is the level 1 can encompass? Sort of a wide range of conduct that maybe wouldn't normally think of when you hear, sex offender. I mean, it has a lot of conduct, and so, there's levels that are assigned to them, and the highest restrictions apply to the 3 and 4.
Yeah, the threats to others, people can be level like 1 for doing stupid things under the influence that don't involve, assaulting or attacking
Or status crimes, I would assume, right?
I just think this is an area where a school district is not at liberty to adjust the parameters in which we treat a person with this. I think we have to follow, the legal code that's set before us
Even though you're
in both directions,
you're
whether.
a felon, you have constitutional rights, and association is one of those, and so, that's.
No
Look at
wiggle
what you said,
room.
even though you're a felon, you're talking to me. If one is a
Like
felon,
Tim.
what you mean to say. Yeah.
For example.
You are just in a safe place. It's okay.
All right.
Any other
Thank you, Dr.
questions?
Ben. Are there any further questions? Okay, we'll have these on next month. Moving on to the old business, we have the EOA Early Head Start program. I see our EOA folks in the back. Thank you for sticking with us.
Yes, sir. Mr. President, we do have Delia Farmer, who is the Executive Director of the Economic Opportunity Agency, EOA, and also with her was Lance Johnson, Director of Children's Services, and they also have one of their board members, Mrs. Faye Jones, with there.
We thank you all for being here, and sorry you had to listen to some long discussion there earlier.
And,
Important decisions.
I'm have a few comments, but our recommendation is that the board would vote to approve that we will house the EOA Early Head Start program at APS for the upcoming year.
Wonderful,
And,
thanks.
Ms. Farmer, you comments?
Well, good evening,
evening.
members of the school board and Dr. Colbert. We appreciate you for giving us an opportunity to address you this evening. I'm the Executive Director for Economic Opportunity Agency. We have operated the Head Start program for 52 years in Washington County. We have 2 Head Start centers in Fayetteville, 3 in Springdale, and 1 in Lincoln. And we've been pleased with the partnership that we've had with Fayetteville Public Schools. We share common goals to close the achievement gap and to ensure children enter school ready for school success. And we are excited about the opportunity or potential opportunity to expand that partnership to include a Head Start Center on the Alps campus. And on the campus, there would be 4 classrooms. 3 of those classrooms would be early Head Start, and 1 classroom would be for regular Head Start classroom for a total of 41 students. And this would increase accessibility to quality early childhood education for the students at ALPS, as well as increase accessibility for low-income families in the surrounding communities. So we think that this would be a good approach to increase and improve outcomes among children as they matriculate through Fayetteville Public School System. And I would also like to address any questions that you might have.
I think this is really exciting. I'm really glad to see Michelle Hayward's out there, and I know you work closely with her. And just, one piece of advice that I'm sure you're already thinking, and I know Michelle's thinking, is just the closer you work with the elementary schools, probably the better this will work and the more smoothly it will work. And the one thing, and I don't think you'd have any objection to this, I'll probably ask the board to pass a resolution just asking our people to report to us annually on how things are working, how the data's looking, you know, knowing that it's really going to take several years to get a good feel for that. But I do think it's important to monitor it and see if we might want to expand it down the road.
Okay, absolutely.
Again, do you expect in August 2019?
Yes, August 1st, 2019 through August of 2020, and it would extend unless the school board decided not to continue that program.
How many students?
For 41 students.
41, okay, great.
Yes.
Okay. Are there any?
And as you approve this, remember there will be some renovation that we need to do to the classrooms in order to be in compliance with Head Start guidance. And so that's going to, in partnership with Head Start, they will be able to help us with some of that. Totals approximately $110,000 in order to try to upgrade those rooms.
I
Any
would
other
like to
questions?
make a motion just that admin does report to us annually how the data is looking. So how would I word that? What would be a good way to do that? Or we just do it
What
informally?
data? I'm always, like we talked about this last time, I don't understand what we're doing with 0 to 4-year-olds that generates data.
We assess things. We're also reporting maybe on how the ALP students are doing in terms of some of them getting the training to do this.
No.
Well, I'm not real.
I was going to say, we could certainly have an update
Yeah.
from admin. I don't know if it requires I don't think it requires a motion, but I think
Okay.
there is a lot of interest in the program.
Yes.
And I think we have an interest to see how it's going, and would like to hear back in appropriate times to see how things are going. So
Well, absolutely.
Yeah, hopefully, Bob, in 5 years, once they get into kindergarten and all that, hopefully we can track those kids and see how well they are doing academically at that point, because we really want to make sure that they stay on track, as they go into kindergarten. So that's type of information that I would be interested in providing for the board. Yeah.
Okay.
Because
These are
it
not-
is
I mean,
to,
we're not-
like she said
we're
earlier,
not
it is to
testing
try
these
to
things.
close the achievement gap. Yeah.
So I don't know if that's I don't know if you made
I think an understanding of emotion.
Yeah.
That's cool.
We will provide that information.
I'm just
yes.
curious, what hours will the children be in school?
Well, we would extend the hours at the Alps campus because of the hours that the students are in school.
Okay, so it would mirror the Alps schedule.
Yes, it would mirror
Okay.
the school schedule with the start of
8 o'clock. I believe that they're in class from 8:30 to 4.
Uh-huh,
We
okay.
would start 30 minutes prior and then go 30
Okay.
minutes longer.
Thank you. Any other questions?
Sounds great.
You need a board approval of the lease agreement.
that is correct, yes.
With those renovations.
Well, I'll move that we support the execution of the lease agreement and including the necessary renovations.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second for Bob. Any more discussion from the board? Any discussion from the floor? All right, all those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say no. All right, motion passes 7-0. Thank you all very much for
Thank
coming.
you
We
very
appreciate it.
much.
Thank you. Forward to it. Thank you, guys.
All right, next we have three new policies that are actually on old business. School choice, promotion, retention, acceleration of students, and memorials. And these are new or revised policies. Dr. Ben, is that you on these three?
Yes.
Okay.
These, is there for a second?
It is.
Second reading. School choice, promotion, retention, and memorials. There is a slip sheet also, I'm sorry, on the memorials that just sought to emphasize the fact that the policy does not supersede policy 6.7 or 6.18, which are policies that we currently have for naming facilities.
What's the change on that, or is it?
There's a
Oh, I
sentence
see it. Okay.
inserted, yes.
Got it, got it.
It's really in there,
In the middle.
in the middle of that second paragraph.
Okay.
But it's also in the last sentence of the policy. But the slip sheet has it inserted into that paragraph just to make that clear.
Yeah, I recall discussion when we adopted the naming rights policy. I've been reading this since the last meeting and have had, some of you may have also had a couple of phone calls or emails from some folks about not quite sure what is, what this is addressing or what the concern might be. I certainly understand not wanting folks to say, okay, well, we want to honor the memory of a student or something, and we show up with this thing to donate, and the district has to accept it and, and deal with it and maintain it and so forth. I'm not sure that simply saying that nothing in this policy is going to run afoul of the naming thing, because some of the memorial things aren't necessarily naming of a space or a thing. It may just simply be, trees or plantings or other things. So I'm not quite sure I'm ready to move forward on it without maybe a little more thought and consideration and to relook at our naming piece. It's an area I work in terms of philanthropic endeavors and naming of things. But I'm not quite sure that this is I'm not quite sure what the problem that's being addressed and if this is the best way to go about it.
My understanding, and I'm not taking a side here, but my understanding, just in answer to your question, was that if we wind up that we get a lot of requests for this because schools are so, they're important community hubs, and that children who are playing on playgrounds or on grounds that are constantly reminded, like as if you kind of turn and then you turn and turn again, and it's like this person's death, that person's death, that it's that doing it for one person would not be a problem, right? But that if it becomes a popular way to commemorate the loss of a loved one, it can fill buildings and grounds with, a real emphasis on death, which is maybe not what we want on our school grounds. I don't know. That's my understanding of the opposing argument.
That part too.
That is correct. We get so many recommendations, requests, and so we just felt that in order for us to try to have some type of control over it, and we do want to recognize the family members or students, but we were suggesting that if they would like to do that, a good venue would be through the foundation. And then we did go back and consider the fact that, there are some cases where we have to look at it and with some exceptions. So that's the reason why we referred back to the policy itself so that we can address it when it comes to naming different things. So, and I thought that would address your issue and concern.
Because I'm still not quite sure in terms of the memorial piece. Does that really apply? This may be a question for Mr. Lawson. Someone doing something in someone's memory, I don't know if that is the same thing as when we talk about a naming of a facility or a classroom or.
But this is saying now that we could name a facility after someone. Like if you build an elementary school, you can name it after a person who's deceased now,
Yeah,
according to the policy.
People, we can't just say, okay, our a student or a beloved employee of the district, we want to, put this thing up, and who, that gets touchy. No, don't put that there, and no, it doesn't fit the rest of the signage of the campus. And I understand that there are and ongoing maintenance issues. I'm just not feeling entirely comfortable with the overall approach of the policy.
I don't know if this helps, Mr. Hudson, but I think the key distinction is that this proposed policy is aimed at objects that are brought to campus, while the policies on naming rights, naming facilities are all defined by district facilities, which are defined as properties of the district that are being used for naming purposes, as opposed to a collection of objects on campus that are in the aftermath of a tragic event.
Well, one of the things we could do, and we have 3 policies here, and I don't know if there's, we talked about them last month, and you know, we don't have any comment on the other 2. We can certainly move forward with that if there's a.
I move that we
sorry.
accept policy 5.9 and 5.10 as presented.
And those are the 2, that's school choice and
5.9.
promotion,
Second.
acceleration. Okay, so
If I'm the only one who has a particular concern here, you know, I'm not gonna, you know, I have
We
no
can
veto power, so if, you know, if we're ready to move forward, I might visit with Chris, you know, after the fact and see if there's some things that would maybe improve our naming rights
Well,
piece a little bit.
I was going to suggest if it wasn't an absolute need to have this in place right now, but it could survive a month of another look through, that would that not be appropriate? Because I fielded the same, a few of the same concerns, and it was just, to me, it was more of a clarity issue. I was early on the board when the naming policy came through, and I just went back and revisited that a little bit last night after talking with somebody, and I must say I had a few, you know, questions myself. So obviously, if the board wants to make a motion on that one, we
Well,
can.
depending on I mean, during my boys' time in school, I can think of, you know, of more than a couple of children who passed, and school being a place where families and the kids do come together and have these communal, you know, grieving experiences, and often a desire to, you know, of some sort of remembrance, and I don't know, I'd just like to give a little more thought to it, and on the naming piece as well, so.
Well,
Y'all indulge conversations with our attorney, and maybe there's something to come back a little better.
And just, I haven't heard from constituents on this, and so just to understand you're looking to just be more clear about what is and is not okay. So you're okay with limiting it a little, you just want to be clear about things that would be okay.
Yeah,
Is
I mean,
that?
it's,
I think I can totally understand the concerns and why you would want to have that. I mean, that's to me that I mean that could be a management issue, but as you pointed out, you know, it changes the nature of the space, especially if you have a lot of them. So that's understood. I think it was really how those policies work, and I think to me it deserved a second look. But I would certainly, you know, if there's a wish otherwise to move forward with the way it's written now, that's.
I don't want. I'm not asking to move forward on it. I want to be able to think about it well too.
Yeah.
So like, I haven't heard from constituents. So if there's, I would like. I respect you guys, and so I would like just an idea of your reservations so that I can think about them well.
That makes sense, yeah.
yeah, so thou shall not be used, school buildings shall not be used for temporary or permanent memorials unless otherwise approved within the naming rights policy. Again, those are, you know, naming is, you know, a sign saying this is, you know, the Bob Smith corridor or hallway or classroom. The temporary or permanent memorials, you know, I'm trying to think of the campuses we've had where we have actually not through, I'm trying to think, maybe we went through board action where a campus said, we want this garden to be in memory of, someone here is going to remember where we've done this, but that didn't involve the board, decreeing or not. And then the temporary part of it, I can see where in that time of grief and coping
Right, that you would want to be able to have like a temporary.
possibly, but I'm just I'm fuzzy on this one, which is a big surprise, I'm sure, to everyone. I'm fuzzy about something.
We do have a couple of memorials. We have
Like
Yeah.
the Becky Knight Garden, that
And the-
wasn't a board
at
approved.
Woodland, the butterfly bench at
Yeah.
Leverett.
Right,
is
that's,
one.
we have so
Right.
many, so at this time, we want some guidance. And we
Right.
can have some, policies to say, okay, no, we prefer that you go this route. It's the reason why we need it.
And
Yeah.
nothing in this recommendation, as I understand it, is to say we undo things that were
Right,
done
no,
prior to this.
no,
Okay.
all of that will remain, yes.
Sorry, Nika, you had a motion, I think there was even a second one there. I don't want to.
A motion for 5.9 and 510, right? Or what's the next one? Sorry, keep on
Yeah,
losing it.
510. Or it was 5.9 and 5.10, yeah.
Yeah, for 510. So we have a motion for 5.9 and 5.10.
Second.
I second it,
You second it, thank you. Is there any other discussion from the board? Any discussion from the floor? Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say no. Okay, motion's passed 7-0, and
Do you need a motion to table?
I was going to ask that, yeah,
Whatever.
till next meeting.
Sorry, yeah, so I would, we table,
6.20.
yeah, thank you, 6.20 memorials.
Do I have a second?
Second that too.
Okay. Motion second. Any discussion from the board? Any from the floor? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say no. Okay. Motion is tabled to the next meeting. With no further business before us?
May I just
Go on.
say one, I forgot to say, recognize Holly Johnson. She also is a board member of EOA, so, just for the record. Yeah.
Because you're not busy enough in
You
your
were,
day.
you were hiding that from us all this time. Okay, thanks. No further business. We stand adjourned.